I learned that when you eat shit, don't nibble. Yeah, so I didn't train in my 20s.
I actually didn't squat until I was 33. That was the first time I got underweight.
Whoa.
Swear. The first time I lifted anything, touched a barbell, was 33 years old.
Hey, you people listening, this is actually a very cool thing because a lot of people are like, I'm starting the gym too late and they don't think they can.
There's
Both
never
y'all are
too late.
jacked.
Tell us more about your friend Bubs.
He's like, yeah, we should drop out of college and go move to the mountains. We're 18, 19
Where are
years
your
old.
parents at this point?
Wildly disappointed in us. I drove him down to the recruiter. 10 months later, I'm going to his BUBS graduation. That's Glenn right there. That gesture of running to help his friends at all costs is my best friend. Yeah, you know, we now have a company that we get to remember him by and hopefully inspire others to just do something beyond themselves, live a better life, just go use this body for what it was meant to. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I feel amazing right now.
Yeah.
What is in that collagen? Collagen is a lifetime game. Like, this is long game stuff. This is, I want to be in the gym in my 70s. I want to snowboard well as long as I can. This is one tool that's going to help me get there.
Because you've touched upon a bunch of little interesting things here and there, and I'm like, this guy knows weird shit. We love sharing weird shit with people on this show. Look how happy he's
I
getting.
know. That's it. He was like, you got to be on this. You know the weird shit. And I'm like, I don't know the weird shit, but I can try.
If I can go sit down on the toilet and get up and just walk away clean, that's a ghost
great.
wipe day.
Yeah, I call that an ace because, you know, there's no return on it when you serve it up.
Taper shits.
That's
the
awesome.
best.
PowerProject family, how's it going? Now on this podcast, Mark, Andrew, and I, we talk about fasting a lot. We talk about the ketogenic diet and a lot of different types of diets, but BUBS Naturals has a product. They have the collagen protein, which is amazing. They have these apple cider vinegar gummies, which are like crack, but they have
They are.
these, they have these MCT oil powder packets that I've never used to do this, but in the morning I'll wake up and I'll put it in coffee, and the smoothness, number one, in terms of the mixing is amazing, but the consistency of my energy through the day because of the MCT oil powder is peak. Andrew, how's your experience with it?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's like the best way to start the day. You're satiated, you're energized, and you're just ready to crush the day. So if you guys want to get in on this MCT oil powder, head over to bubsnaturals.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 20% off your entire order. Again, BUBS Naturals, promo code PowerProject to save 20% off. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Like, you mean
Like on it.
like this?
Yeah, we can stay this close too. Do you
Well,
want
no. I
proximity or
meant
just to the mic.
to the mic, your face to the microphone, not.
Okay,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this?
So you guys, all four of you, share one microphone. Get
exactly.
really close.
Like a Boston concert. It's fine. Everybody's in one.
Yeah.
Don't know the reference, but sure.
Boston concert?
You know, the band,
Boston?
Boston.
Like Massachusetts?
Boston, like is that a band?
Like
It's a
rock?
band.
Oh, okay. I almost knew.
We're learning things here. Holy
Andrew,
shit.
his mic isn't
My
on.
bad. Sorry. Okay, there we go. I forgot. There's four people now. Okay, there you go. Now you're on, sir. Sorry.
Hi.
Just turn the CEO's mics off.
I know.
Turn his mic off.
Yeah,
That's the one person we don't need to hear from.
It's true. It's true.
Just going to sit here and smile.
Dog, but real talk, when you told me you were 51, I was so surprised because like people think that like white people age like raisins. But this man right here, like you are defying age. It's fucking
Benjamin
amazing.
Button, right? Dude.
Right? It's actually really crazy. You're doing awesome, man.
This is purely the byproduct of having a wife who is 14 years younger than
There
me.
you go.
I got to
Hey,
work
now.
for that shit.
Very true.
She's keeping me young. Keeping me young.
Nice.
What's going on with some of this tracking stuff? You were saying you like to track a lot of your training and all that stuff?
So I didn't know that I was a geek on metrics, and maybe I was in college. I'm like, I can drink 12 beers. Like, I like keeping track of those kinds of numbers. I didn't think of it like in later in years, but TJ turned me on to Whoop in 2019, and he's like, hey, like, check this out. Now, he's the king of numbers. Like, it's all numbers with him all day long. I think he sees in the Matrix. Like, it's all binary shit, zeros and ones. And I'm like, I'm going to wear this bracelet and it's going to tell me what my heart rate is. But I can just go like this and count for 10 seconds and I can find out what my heart rate is. He's like, no, it's just way better than that. And in 2019, I don't think America in general was really talking about sleep and sleep quality and recovery. It was in the culture and space that we operate in, you know, in when you're in kind of around the world of fitness, it's hammer time, go. How hard did you put out? Did you put out hard enough? No, you didn't. Get out, you know, get more out of it. Like it's always in that dialogue. And this took a totally different approach to that conversation. I was like, oh, what is this HRV you speak of? And I had to learn. I was like, I'm kind of geeked on this. Like, I know there's a heart rate. I didn't know there's a heart rate variability. And then I was like, well, what is your stress response? And then it became a competition. Like anything, especially in a small business like what
Look
we
how
have.
recovered I am.
Yeah, well, here's the downside. Dude's HRV is like naturally at 125, and mine is in the floor all
What
the
does
time.
that
like
mean? Can you
20
explain
bucks.
that to some people that maybe have no idea what we're talking about?
No.
So I'll do my best. So obviously, heart rate is the hit, right? You're measuring the hit, how many times your heart's beating a minute. The variability is the gap between those beats. So
your lowest and your highest.
yeah, and it's an indicator of your body's stress, your body's recovery, whether or not you have an immune response, whether or not you've been working out too hard, whether you've been sleeping poorly. In the Whoop case, and I think it's no secret, whether or not you've been drinking, because they're very anti-booze for the most part.
It's a teetotaler's operation over
It
there.
truly is 100%. But all that being said is, it's another indicator of performance, life performance. And
What about if you get high?
I'll run that. And actually, honestly, Whoop actually came out.
Whoops, like we're all for it, man. You're recovered.
Email came out like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but they did a full blind case study on people that reported marijuana use and how it affected sleep and recovery.
What did they find?
Zero.
No effect.
Zero effect.
Yeah.
Zero effect.
Yep.
You have no idea.
Let's go. I'm
no
pumped.
Same.
I have no reason to be pumped, obviously, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, but just in case.
Hypothetically.
Just in case. So I got super geeked on that. I'm like, oh, I've got an HRV, beats your HRV, whatever, nerd. And you get competitive about that, and it's like, oh, I only slept for 5 hours, but I got a 90% recovery. And you're geeked on that stuff. Then that kind of like fades out, but there's also an accountability to it. So we talked about the alcohol thing or weed or whatever your thing is. You have this diary built into the platform. It was there from the very beginning. And I would ask myself in my head sometimes about healthy eating habits or different healthy habits you can apply, right? But if the accountability is not there, how long are you going to last? So this journaling that it has, it runs a 90-day total for you got 3 months of data that it keeps right on the screen. And every morning you can customize what questions it will ask you. So, hey, you're awake now. You go into your Whoop. Before it tells you what your recovery is, kind of holds that behind a screen. It says, for me, these are the questions I have it asked. Did you drink last night? I'm like, oh, this is great. Whether you had 1 glass of wine with dinner or you drank 12, you can answer yes or no. And then you can optionally
Or sliding scale.
sliding scale. I had 15 margaritas. Like whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
Then it's, did you use CBD? Did you read? Did you read on a device? So the whole blue light thing is 100% in there. Did you have sex last night? Did you knock boots? Like whatever, you can go through and customize that. Did you have prescription sleep medication? And then there's a whole COVID thing in there as well. Like that, like, were you sick? Was it this? So I love that because all of a sudden I realized like, oh, I went on vacation in 2019, like 3 months in a row, and my alcohol intake bumped to 50%, which means every other day I'm having a drink. And I'm like, man, that's kind of a lot. I think I'm going to change that. So all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to make a new rule for myself. I'm going to drink 1 day a week. And all of a sudden your non-drinking days hits 65, 70%. And you're like, oh, look at this. I've created a habit. Now, is it sustainable? Well, you got 90 days worth of data. Most studies would show that after 90 days, you're in it, man. Like you've now established a pattern. And now here we are, 3 years later?
3 years in, with all the data. And we don't use any of it, no.
Only on Friday nights.
Right.
And we only ignore it on Friday nights.
Why is it that your HRV was always really good? Like, what have you noticed about your habits that your HRV is always solid or pretty much solid?
I've always looked at HRV as a stress response. So I'm like, okay, how do I deal with problems? How do I deal with shit that comes at you, like the unknowns, the unknowables? And I never really thought about it like compared to, say, TJ's stress response.
Yeah.
But we've gone through some stress, like as business owners, like personally, professionally, we've been through it. And our reactions to those could not be more opposite.
Really?
Captain Redline over here?
I'm out of control. Oh yeah. I mean, how much time we got on this thing. But I mean, September, like quite frankly, September, I was completely redlined, and he texted me, and I straight up said, fuck off, and I shut off my phone for 2 weeks. I disappeared for 2 weeks in September.
Whoa.
Because all the stress built up. And I mean, the whoop wasn't lying. Like it was in the tank. But before we get into to qualify for everybody listening, everybody's HRV is different, baseline, top and bottom. So his base is, 115 or something like that. His high end's 160. My base might be 22 and my high end might be 65. So it's always within the range, but obviously your personal response to that stress is very different. And he responds way different to stress than I do in all the situations.
Wow.
But it's how, like, so he flamed out in September, like he redlined, and he needed literally like a 2-week window to decompress. And it was like all the stress that had been building in our business for almost 8 months, right? It was a long pile up, and we can talk about that, but there was just thing after thing after thing just kept happening. It was like the ultimate challenge. It's like, okay, how are you going to respond to that? And I'll ask myself that question. Like, oh, I just got hit with an FDA recall. That's about as shitty of a thing as you can have happen as a business if you're in the dietary supplement space or you're in the nutrition space. That's the one thing you don't want to have happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my first reaction on the inside might be, fuck, motherfucker, pick a swear word. But then the second one's got to be, how do I want to respond to this? How do I want to deal with this? What's the best path forward? Now my outside voice is going to come in. Whereas he has already issued 5 F-bombs in a row and is redline, and something's going to get thrown against the wall. And I'm like, that doesn't solve it.
There's really wonderful opportunities to advertise your brand even further. Say, hey, listen, the FDA, they pulled this. Look at all this product I have. You video it, you show it. You say, I have all this product. We were going to serve you guys a lot of these special things that we have in the works. We've been working on this for a long time. It takes a long time to do X, Y, and Z. This got recalled, so this kind of stinks, but we're going to move in this other direction, and we're excited about that.
Yeah.
And you kind of show people like a little bit of behind the scenes of you can turn something that kind of seems negative into something that's much more positive. For myself, I had there's a particular powerlifting federation that they like, in order to get your stuff like approved, it's basically just pay to play kind of thing. And so I was just like, all right, well, how much is it to pay? And you got to pay like X amount per item. Yeah. And it just started to really tally up. And I'm like, okay, it's $250,000 to play this game.
Yeah, by the time the whole portfolio's in there, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
That sounds worthy enough to shoot a video and make it rain and like talk trash a little bit about like how this is part of powerlifting. Yeah. But also I'm willing to pay this because I want to provide my products to you. And it went off with a bang. At first it was kind of frustrating because it's like, well, why is this approved or that approved? And people they pay for it. So it's interesting. You can turn some of these things that happen into, sometimes you just got to eat some shit, right? Sometimes
we definitely, we've been down that road.
You lost $100,000 today. Like, that's wonderful.
That's an amazing. So I have a friend of mine, this guy named Jason. And Jason he's in the flower business. He sells sunflowers all over the United States. He's like, if you buy sunflowers at a grocery store, at your local Rayleigh's, whatever you go, you're buying his brand. And Jason's just a buddy. Like, he's like, drink some tequila with him. And I know him from like just being in the same neighborhood. And I'm like, so have you learned like what would you say like your best business lesson was you've learned? Like totally broad, open-ended question. He's like, yeah. I learned that when you eat shit, don't nibble. And I was like, wow. Okay, now this is before the recall. So when that happened, and when we had, basically just to let everyone know, we have an MCT oil powder, which is a non-dairy creamer. It says non-dairy, dairy-free all over the packaging. And
there we go.
My God, pull that out of his pocket.
Just right there. That's beautiful.
It's like you knew. And so this product popped for dairy. We're like, how the fuck did that happen? Like, that should not have happened.
Comes from coconuts.
It comes from coconut. There's tapioca starch and coconut, and you put them together, and that's it. Clean ingredients. Where'd the dairy come from? So that happens. We get alerted. We got to like call the attorneys, call the FDA, and it was like, well, how do we deal with this thing, right? Like, I've never dealt with anything like this in my life. Tell everyone. Page 1 Google search, do everything as an e-commerce business you don't want to have happen. Get right in front of it. Write an email, a personal email that I spent hours on to inform every single customer of what happened and then answer every single one of their emails personally to address the issue while we're trying to fix it.
And that's 100% true. I mean, that like when we sent them out, it wasn't from info@, it was from TJ or Shaun @ and people responded to us and we gave the individual. But that's how you scale. You scale a business by scaling the unscalable, right? So if we got to answer 4,500, hey, what the hell questions, so be it. But we've retained those people and they still believe in the product, which is good.
My HRV took a hit.
Yeah, your HRV went down.
Oddly, it went down. I'm like 90.
You guys ever consider alternatives? Because you mentioned the alcohol, making your thing drop, but marijuana not necessarily. Have you guys ever tried kratom?
Have not.
Let's try some right now.
Funny you should mention that.
We got some Mind Bullet right here.
So my buddy Danny Way was in the office.
Cheers.
Claiming the kratom just the other day.
Take the whole thing down? Is that what's happening?
Take the whole thing down
Kabing.
to the
You guys,
face.
I'll do 2 capsules back
I
here.
don't have to drive.
It's really great. If you do have to drive, you'll just drive right off a cliff.
It says potion, and it tastes like a potion.
Come on, Nsima.
For 3.
Nailed it.
There it is.
Every
Done.
time.
Don't try it. Like,
Does
don't
the
try
camera?
Nothing but
No,
nail.
we're not. I'm not that advanced.
So as far as
yeah.
you're concerned,
It might have made it.
Matumbo.
Bummer.
Shit.
Bummer.
That's all right.
That was 100% on film.
That was so bad.
And like that, we remove his title. No longer the CEO.
That was great.
Watch him drain. Watch him drain it, boys.
But then we get off the show, he's gonna be like, "No, I did that on purpose for comedy, guys."
Yeah.
I hit the skinniest pole over there. That had to have been on purpose.
Our guy's playing chess, not checkers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Totally.
Sorry, you guys don't get the joke.
So like honestly though, instead of alcohol, have you guys messed with like THC or like, I think a lot of folks just, I'm not promoting that people like get involved in like taking a lot of different things that they might get addicted to, but alcohol is just like a really interesting one. It's just so social, right? It's part of this.
We've had it for
but
hundreds and thousands of years.
yeah, there's a lot of other options out there if you want to get like, if you want to escape reality a little bit without maybe having some of the same negative side effects.
So we went to, when we launched the business in 2018. Now we'll probably talk about this a little bit, but I was very, very unknowledgeable about the general nutrition space. I was kind of like, I would do whatever my wife told me to do. So collagen, I didn't know anything about collagen in 2017. My wife said, "You're going to start taking this." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'll do this because you're telling me to." We launched the business in 2018. We go to the Paleo FX trade show in Austin, Texas. And we're like, this is our coming out party. We're going to introduce ourselves to all of these gnarly nutrition experts. And we are really happy with our product and like what we're going to put in front of them. Like we are not peacocking because we're too nervous to, but we definitely feel good about what we have. And we're there for about 2 hours. And TJ kind of looks at me. He's like, "Do you realize that almost everyone in here is microdosing?" I'm like, "Micro-whatting?" And he's like, "Everyone in here is like running around popping mushrooms, like in little gel caps." And I'm like, "Wait, like mushrooms? Like you're going to go out and pet the trees mushrooms?" And he's like, yeah, but not enough. It's called microdosing. So that was like kind of like, I don't do that since, again, there's kind of that moment in your 20s where you're like, all right, this is great. I'm getting all fucked up. And then you kind of move past that phase, or some people don't, but I did. And now it's back. I'm like, but it's back with really fit people. Like these are healthy, strong people, all microdosing. And
I have a very different story, and it's completely backwards from this.
I think some people, I think some of their experience with those things maybe was from a long time ago, and maybe was from like really taking a large dose and really getting jacked up from it, and maybe having a really bad experience. Maybe they had a bad trip, and then they think like, oh, these things are not things that I should ever really mess with. But I for me personally, I've enjoyed doing a little bit of it here and there.
Yeah.
So, so show of hands. How many of you, like, and I'm going to call it the 20s, but pick whatever generation, like, drank too much?
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
I definitely did.
I never got
Literally.
100% did.
Thank
yeah.
you for being honest.
Yeah.
You see, I didn't drink until I was 23. Like I seriously, I have a very backwards life. I didn't drink until I was 23. I smoked weed for the first time at like 32.
need to get Michael Niddle in here, a guy who's
right.
really knows how to party.
But
Yeah, but he's a grandparent.
I'll play
now.
the spectrum now. That's the thing. It's like I understand like alcohol is not great for me personally. I have ulcerative colitis. I have a bunch of issues, and it just makes gut distress, and it doesn't make my week feel good. Right, my sleep's bad, and then I'm in the middle of a workout and trying to squeeze my ass because I'm like, I got to run to the bathroom. Holy shit, what's going on? A bunch of problems. So I dump alcohol, but I like to de-stress-ish and have fun. Where can I go to do that? Meditation, cool, that works. I have the Calm app. I can do all these different things. Okay, are there things I can take that help this too? And I'm fully in the camp that anything, including products that we make, whether it's hydration, collagen, whatever, everything you put in your body has a positive effect and an equal negative effect, whether or not you know it. So be careful with what you're putting in your body and make sure you're controlling variables when you're doing it. So that way you elicit the right response, but you're also aware of the negatives that may come back after that. Like, just don't go into it blindly wanting the rage. And I think that's where everybody kind of falls off right now. Is like, yeah, we'll microdose, but that's 6 grams. No, it's not. It's a half a gram. Tone it down.
When you were mentioning what happened at that PaleoFX thing, what were you about to mention?
Oh, so yeah, that was it. It was just a completely different story.
Yeah.
I didn't have any experience with that stuff. I was at that particular event just off a breakup, anxiety through the roof, losing my mind. And one of our good friends, Danielle, came up to me and she was like, put this in your coffee. You'll be fine.
Was it a microdose?
Yeah, totally. She gave me like 5 grams or half a gram of psilocybin. Yeah, half a gram. Sorry, not 5, 0.5.
That explains why you disappeared for 2 days.
Threw it in coffee. It was totally good. And we grabbed a couple ripping workouts. We ran like 5 miles and did a bunch of like half Cindy or something like that in the backyard. And I was totally functional. I was like, oh my God, 2 more days on that. And I was like, oh, the anxiety's gone. And I can function in public and this isn't bad. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep this in my back pocket in case it happens again.
And that notion, so the whole microdosing, that was 2018.
Yeah.
Go back to Encinitas, go back to our little bubble. And now my oldest son is in kindergarten and my wife comes home from school and like some after school function. She's like, hey, all these moms are all microdosing. I'm like, wait,
This is good
what?
shit. Wow.
Yeah, dude, it went from Pinot Grigio with a straw in it to now, hey, you got a half a gram?
Yeah. Like cool little corksicle. Like there's no way that's, just water in there into everyone's microdosing.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
And honestly, I'm a fan. I think it's better.
I think it's better than alcohol too.
I think it's way better.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely not poisoning yourself to the same degree. I mean, look at
alcohol is very poisonous. Yeah.
And it doesn't get any better. It's like, when you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, it's not like alcohol is somehow kinder in the recovery process. Like it just beats the shit out of you. Now, some of the drinks taste good, like a really good bourbon or a really good añejo on a tequila. Sip that, it's delicious, but you don't need 6.
Or the bottle. I don't know anything about that. But.
Right. So yeah, like now that gummies, of course, like we're in California, so you can pretty much just call MedMen and they'll be there in 30 minutes and you got all that supply. I never got into that.
Yeah.
I overdid it in my 20s and then pulled back from all of that and then was like, okay, cool. I'll drinking, right? Like the drinking's the socially acceptable one. And now I'm just now sort of kind of to your point, like paying attention to that and going like, hey, there's other options out there. You don't just need to drink a scotch or drink a bottle of cab. You can actually not drink at all, be completely socially relaxed, have great conversations, be in good engaging company or do nothing and just chill out on the couch. Like you got options.
TJ, what do you think is in your past that maybe makes it more difficult for you to interpret stuff a particular way without getting so wound up? And what do you think might be in your past that is something that allows you to look at stuff and interpret it maybe more to your favor rather than have you redline?
Ooh, my dad was 82nd military. And I mean, I would say it wasn't a hard upbringing by any stretch. I had very great parents, love them to death. Hi, Mom. But I would say having a component that we get into the driven stuff genetically, and you guys will read this in one of those books that Michael suggested, Driven, which is really good. But genetically, there are humans that have 2 gene alleles. One is DRD2 and one is DRD4. Okay. They stem off the alcoholism gene. They started discovering these with functional MRIs in the mid-90s, and I'm probably butchering some of this, but somebody will come correct me at some point. All that being said, one is greater horizons and one is boredom. greener pastures on the other side, and one is I'm chasing a rabbit. Oh my God, there's another rabbit. Oh my God, there's another rabbit. We have both of those alleles, as does, I would say, everybody in this room, probably to an extent and a degree. The balance of them is different though. He's way more D4. I'm way more D2. I'm run my head through a wall. Like, you want to power lift? Let's go. Let's rip it off the ground. It's calculated on that side, but it makes a really good balance for the business. I think historically in my life, I grew up doing taekwondo, combat sport type stuff, and then I went into endurance, but it was always about beating myself down. Like, for whatever reason, I'm sure we can get into subconscious stuff, but I really hated myself. So it was like, okay, let's just destroy this body that I'm in as hard as I can and suffer as much as I can to get performance, to either get recognition or to get the pat on the back from somebody or whatever it is. I didn't have that capacity to take one step back. Like, it's 6 years of therapy and I can still take a half a step back, maybe recognize it and then go back into it. But I'm not perfect. I mean, no way. I will redline all the time. I mean, I just can't help it. But also I use it as fuel. So it's good, right? You get in, get the smelling salts, and you're going to rip an extra 200 pounds. That rage is good for some things. That's powerful. Sometimes he doesn't have that. So on the opposite side, when I'm like, yo, dude, time to hit the gas, let's go. And he can come around and say, oh, okay, yeah, this is the time to do that. It's very rare that that happens, but we have that balance, which I think is really good.
And there is that, like, I definitely find myself kind of thinking further down the line. So if he's thinking 5 steps ahead and I'm thinking a mile down the road, there's a good balance there. Yeah. And it's funny because I always have to remind him, like, hey, it's not that I'm not having those feelings, like whether it's like, you know, response to a negative situation with, you know, some sort of anger, some sort of fuel, that fire, like, it's there. I'm just not putting it right out in front of me. I'm holding it down in here. I'm making some decisions about it, and then we're going to act. And I'm going to act thinking about where we got to get to. If there's a wall right in front of us, you want to smash through it, I want to scale over it or go around it or use the door. It's right there.
Or use the hole that you created.
Yeah.
Right.
So
you know what I mean? Yeah.
But he can't see me from the other side, right? Sorry, took it right home. Yeah, lay me up.
For you, is that something that came with maturity, or have you just been that way your whole life?
No, that definitely came with age and with training. So
Kids being the training.
No, I'm honestly, I'm going to go to like Mark Divine, Sealfit, in those years. Yep. So in my 20s, so I grew up in a little suburb in Massachusetts, and I had parents that divorced at a young age. Dad, who was an alcoholic, he sobered up. At that point, I had moved out. Me and my older brother and younger sister, we moved to a little suburb right outside of Boston. And so I was raised in therapy. You're going to talk about things. Now, this is in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And that wasn't done. But mom was like, no. I'm not going to let you be raised and not talk about what we just left. Like, that's going to be discussed. The whole dad gets drunk and can't stand up or punches something, or there's yelling and fighting. Like, we're going to explore that. And I fucking hated it. But I did it because I didn't have a choice because, you know, mom drove me there.
Yeah.
And that kind of like analysis, like, you're going to share your thoughts, you're going to share what you're going through, kind of was defining. So, like, I guess something in there was unlocked, whether I tried to repress it or not. And then the sports that I got into were very much individual based. I didn't like the team sports. I didn't want to be playing football or playing lacrosse or doing the other sports that everyone's doing. I wanted the solo stuff. And I did it because I just kind of had to do it. I didn't get really turned on to sport until I discovered skateboarding. And skateboarding to me unlocked a lot of kind of long-term problem solving, because you don't just jump on a skateboard and you're good at it. You don't jump on a skateboard and learn how to ollie. It takes months and months to gain confidence, to gain awareness, to gain body control. And I fucking loved it. I loved every bit about it, but that's all long game stuff. And so I didn't see it for what it was then. I had to reflect back on it. When I got into my 30s, and at that point I'd gone through an entire career as a professional snowboarder. Like, I had this awesome run in my 20s where I was getting paid to ride a snowboard and travel the world. It's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
That was this blend of adrenaline and action and problem solving. I'm at the top of a mountain and I want to get down there, and I want to do it in this mitigated risk fashion to challenge and scare the living God out of myself as much as possible, but live through it and successfully navigate a line that would be considered, dancing line between high risk and totally attainable.
Flow state addiction.
And I loved it. And I did it for years. I mean, hell, I paid for college. Like, it was a really neat experience, but again, more longer term. When I got out of that, I fell out of that for a while. And so in my 30s, I definitely struggled more with that, to where I was more impulsive, like ready to get angry. Like, I could solve a problem, but it just took me out of my game because I was suddenly on the desk job and it was in a different space. Yeah. I discovered training and I was really bad at something again. And I had to learn to get good at it. Because,
like, just training in the gym, lifting weights and stuff?
Yeah. So I didn't train in my 20s.
Oh,
so when you
I know, right?
This is snowboarding. Snowboarding in the 90s was like, it was built on adrenaline and it was built on something else, but no one was like lifting weights. Mm-hmm. And my best buddy that whole time, this guy Glen Bub Doherty, he was my ski bum buddy. He was my roommate. We were like best friends since middle school and high school. Like, we both grew up in Winchester, Massachusetts together, and we moved to Utah together. So I would shadow him because he was always fit. He was, he was a high school wrestler, and we moved out to the mountains, and there's a lot of athletic things you do. Like, you have to hike up the mountain sometimes to get down the mountain. Well, you can't just do that at 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
It takes practice. That athleticness of your 20s does diminish. So you go and take that desk job, and all of a sudden you're not snowboarding 120 days a year. You kind of lose it. So at 34, 35, I kind of had a little paunch, and I was like, ew, I don't like this. And Glenn, at that point, he had dropped out of ski bumming. He had joined the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. So talk about a diesel ripped, yoked out bro who knows a ton about working out. And I didn't really know much of anything. So he just started feeding me these little programs. And that led me to CrossFit, which was, for me, was like unlocking a ton of potential because I didn't know anything about a barbell. I didn't know anything about a kettlebell. I kind of knew how to do a bicep curl, and I knew how to run, but like putting all of these hundreds of different movements together was like, it was like a playground. So it turned on this again, like my problem solving skills, like all those ideas of long gaming something was like, oh, I'm going to suck at this for a long time. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm back to skateboarding all over again. Yeah. And it's going to help me skateboard better. So it was like this win-win situation. And I guess that kind of unlocked me to like rediscovering that. And then I think after, you get to a certain age, you can then apply those lessons from younger and be like, oh yeah, that's why I like that. Now I see it. So now at 51, I'm looking at my 40s and I'm looking at my 30s and my 20s. I'm kind of taking a little bit more stock, when someone asks the right questions.
Yeah. You mentioned the flow state thing, the flow state addiction. And I'm curious now in your 50s, lifting, and you too, TJ, do you do anything? Or are there any physical activities, things that you do that you feel that you can end up tapping into a flow state? And I ask this because it's like, I feel that with jujitsu, but I'll never feel that with lifting. I can get like, if I'm lifting something heavy, maybe I can just focus in on it, but it's not a flow state type feeling, like doing something like snowboarding down a mountain, and you have to relax and you have to do what your body knows how to do. So you're not thinking of all the bad things that could happen.
I personally never felt that from lifting either.
Yeah. Right. But I know what that feels like since I do jujitsu. So do you have anything that allows you to feel that? And you too, TJ, do you have anything that allows you to feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a competitive cyclist prior to finding CrossFit, fitness, lifting weights.
That explains those legs.
So here's the funny thing.
The tendons and the shape of your legs and shit was fucking wild. He's like doing the belt squat. Pretty nuts.
Mm-hmm. So I was doing that for a while. I actually didn't squat until I was 33. That was the first time I got underweight.
Whoa.
Swear. The first time I lifted anything, touched a barbell, was 33 years old.
Both y'all jacked for
never.
This is, hey, you people listening, this is actually a very cool thing because a lot of people are like, I'm starting the gym too late, and they don't think they can.
There's
both
never
y'all are
too
jacked.
Late. But what I'll say is, in terms of the flow state thing, I never got it under a barbell. But learning complex movements, it was learning a clean or a snatch. Maybe I got a little bit learning through that process for sure. As you're getting heavy and you're scaling weight and stuff, that's all out the window. You're just trying to survive. But definitely from like gymnastics type movements, bar muscle ups, handstand push-ups, and trying to figure out your body awareness in that. I definitely found it in the gym, but do I unlock it elsewhere? 110%. Mountain biking currently was my jam. Prior to that, I was skydiving, a grip of skydiving, which was, it was great. And it was also out of control for a while. I was jumping 14, 15 times a weekend. Like, oh yeah, it was bad. So I actually just listed my rig. I decided I was going to tap out of that for a while, and I just listed it and put it up for sale. But
look at this mature move. I like this. I can pull back on that life insurance policy.
Yeah, exactly right.
For him.
Fucking skydiving.
If I pile in, take the company. That's basically what was written on the whiteboard for a while.
Yeah. We wrote a little note. If I die, take all my shit and do something cool with it.
Wow. Well, there we go. And you, I'm guessing you still skateboard? Is that?
So I still skate. It's funny. I've got a 6-year-old son, so I'm kind of waiting for him to come on board with that. But I still snowboard as much as I can and get up into the mountains. And it has not changed. Like in my head, I'm still 25. And in my body and how I'm moving, barring any kind of injury, like I love getting into a good big mountain situation, and I'm still looking at the mountain the same way, and I'm maybe picking one less cliff to jump off, but I'm still about navigating, getting top, getting the bottom, and doing it as, I would say, tastefully as possible. But if I think I need 10 turns, try and get 8. Go a little faster. Push yourself a little bit, like within that range of comfort. And I still want to scare the shit out of myself. I still want that experience. And then oddly enough, it's not from a coordination standpoint, but I can hit a good mental state. Not from the snowboarding. Snowboarding's flow state. Running. Like I can just clear my head. I can get in a zone. And when I lock it down, I find myself pushing it, getting a little bit faster. And there's something about that I find definitely like just cleans the slate, makes me feel really good. It's a totally different experience than I get from, a high intensity workout. Or like we just worked out with Kalipa, right? And you got to think along a lot of some of these movements. So when I'm thinking too much, I can't get there. Like I have to focus on what I'm doing, task priority, move to the next thing. But if I'm snowboarding or if I'm running, I can kind of clear that head, and you're just sort of, your body's doing what it knows what to do. You've trained it to do.
I've never seen, he's a different human, like straight up face structure, everything. He's a chameleon when he's on a board. It is the raddest thing. And I'm not just saying it because I'm next to me, my business partner, but like I've snowboarded with a lot of people and, in pros and stuff, and I can hold my own. I'm not a professional, but I can ride with people. And New Year's Eve, we took off to Baldy. There was a little bit of a powder hit on Baldy, and I was backseat driving. I was like, dude, this is your deal. I'm following you. You tell me where to go. It was the raddest fucking thing. Like, it'll bring me to tears if I think about it enough. Like, different human, and just how he reacts to problem solving. Long lens. Hey, we're going to hit this, and then we're going to go over here, but we can't do this until 3 p.m. because the sun's over here and it's not melting the snow yet. And it is like full snow calculus. And I'm like, cool, man, but a different human. The attitude is different. Body position is different. It's a chameleon. It's so rad to watch. And I think you can see that with a lot of people that can really tap into that have, you watch people roll, you watch black belts roll, and you're just like, oh yeah, you've been doing this for 35 years. That's in your body now. And they unlock that, and you can just watch him go through it. It's the same thing with him on a board. I'm just like, dude, I just want to watch this on video for like a long time. It's so cool.
What's the metrics that you guys get from some of these devices? If you're like running versus lifting versus is there any negative feedback from like snowboarding and stuff like that too?
Also, after you answer that question, why does it hate black people?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Wait, snowboarding or the whoop? The whoop.
So it
just hates darker people for some reason.
Snowboarding took a turn, man. Virgil was on snow.
People will know why I said that afterwards, but yeah.
Well, I mean, on the whoop front, snowboarding's funny. It'll pick it up like it's hiking, because your heart rate might peak. Like there's definitely those adrenaline moments where you're like, all right, I'm at the top of something. This is real. I got to navigate through some rocks or some trees or whatever. But mostly if you're using your body efficiently, you're keeping your heart rate. It's not getting too crazy, like 120, 130 BPMs. If you're hiking, totally different story. Whoop loves their endurance athletes. Hates the guys lifting weights. Like you will never, you could do the biggest workout of your week and it might not even register it. But if I go on a good ruck with a little weight, and it's going to pick it up all day long. I go on a 5K run on a whoop, will give me some giant strain number. I can go rip out that couple hundred burpee workout.
Is that
we were
because
talking
it's
about.
mainly through heart rate? Is that why?
I think that's
Because like your heart rate's not. I mean, when you lift weights, obviously your heart rate's going up, but it's not staying maybe elevated for some people.
Yeah, but it's not fair, right? Because the power output is just
I see.
It's different. So it's not a fair comparable. I think it's something they're probably working on. But yeah, it favors the runner. It favors the endurance athlete all day long.
Do they maybe lean more on like calories burned or something like that?
I think it's heart rate. I mean, because like lifting, you end up talking about like mitochondrial response, right? Like, and do we have to take muscle samples?
Central nervous system and shit like that.
Totally, and
yeah.
we can't read that with a green sensor, and it's not a red sensor, which is why it doesn't work through darker skin tones. And that's a true. I mean, the sensor operations are different, and they changed the 3.0 to the 4.0, so the 4.0 might be a little different. But what I found out from a different doctor, Daniel, during this whole thing, he was exploring wearable tech, one of our buddies, and he was like, yeah, I can't do the Whoop because it doesn't read darker skin or tattoos. Never believed it. I was like, whatever, man, I'm fine. I'm Italian. This is pretty dark. Shut up. But now I get my wife a Whoop. She puts it on. She's fully sleeved out, and it's not reading. Change it to the other wrist. It reads fine. Same thing with her Apple Watch. Reads on her right wrist, won't read on her left wrist. And I'm like, oh, that's odd. And then I'd start doing a little bit deeper research, a little bit deeper research. Yeah. And it's just like they excluded a lot of people for whatever reason.
But I mean, like
sensors.
Yeah, because I mean, I've used Whoop before. I was using Whoop because it was the only tracking device that had a wearable on the arm that I could do jujitsu while wearing it. So I used it for months and it was great. But does that mean my sensor readings were off in a certain way when I was doing it probably?
I think
calm down.
Whoop.
Hey, I have nothing to do with
What's
this.
going on,
These guys
Whoop?
have nothing to do with it. Just relax.
I think there's a chance the readings might be skewed. I don't know. I'll let Whoop weigh in on that. But yeah, it's harder to read through darker skin tones and tattoos and things like that. So
Interesting.
You know what though? I'm gonna go Oura Ring. I'm gonna say that's gonna be your jam.
Oh, can you use the Oura Ring? Is it something that like is it hard or is it like rubber?
It's a hard ring. Yep. So you're not gonna probably roll with it if you're worried about like getting twisted up with someone.
Actually, I wouldn't actually trip about rolling with an Oura Ring on. I don't think that'd be.
You don't need it. You don't need it for lifting.
Yeah,
because it doesn't track any lifting anyway.
Yeah, but when you do physical activity, because I heard the Oura Ring is mainly for sleep, right?
Well, it's marketed. They're kind of their go-to-market was like all about your recovery, but they've got all the same metrics to measure your activity, and it gives you a daily goal to aim towards.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we want to get you to a 500 today. You slept great, so you can do more today. Hey, you slept in the tank, so maybe do a little bit less. And it's also tracking that, but it's very, to a degree, it's manual input. But it picks it up. Like it picks up if you went running, like it's, the motion sensor on it. And just like, again, it's picking up heart rate
Have you guys ever seen 8 Sleep and some of those devices? Because those bed tops.
I want to explore that stuff so bad.
Yeah,
I haven't got into it yet. Do you guys love it?
amazing.
Oh, they're incredible. And it gives you all the metrics as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Along with HRV, heart rate.
Oh, wow.
But like it'll track all that through the
But
night.
the
He's
8 Sleep's
trying
the
to
one
do
that
it with
cools the bed, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
And it cools or warms it, kind of depending on how people like their temperature or whatever. But it's interesting because it's without a wearable.
Oh.
So it's like, how is it giving us this accurate information? But we had the
Because
CEO
this whole
on
meat
the
bag that we're in actually does heart rate out of the side. and everything.
absolutely, absolutely,
it's cool.
Yeah, the CEO was like, he seemed like the Elon Musk of sleep. I mean, that guy knew his shit.
No kidding.
Seems to be working on some really cool stuff.
That's
so
awesome.
We're finding a lot of use for it, and it's helped us a lot.
Yeah.
So
I'd love to
this
explore
is this like one mattress topper, like one for each side of the bed.
Yes.
Like your wife gets one, you get one.
No,
and
but it's
those
actually just
particular-
one topper. You can have it set so it tracks 2 different people, but the topper is just one. You don't have to do like.
Oh, cool.
I think there's another company that does something, but they have to have
The
one.
split.
They have it
Temperatures will
split.
can be different. So your wife could have whatever her temperature is, and you can have whatever temperature you want.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but
Sign me up.
turns you into a big baby though, because once you don't have that and you go sleep somewhere else, you're
Sleep at a
fucked.
hotel and you're bummed.
Oh my god, it's
I've been screwed for the past couple of days. Yeah, it's bad. But the other cool thing that I like is that it has like an alarm inside of it, but it doesn't make any sound. It just starts vibrating around your head.
Oh, cool.
And so you just wake up and you don't wake up like your baby or anything.
So
Yeah.
do you guys all use one? What's the chosen temperature for everybody? Do you guys sleep cooler than your room typically, or?
yeah. I
Way-
have
way
mine is
cold.
pretty much as cold.
Mine's
as you
on
can
the
get it.
coldest.
Mine's
Yeah.
-8, so it's
Yeah.
I got 2 more levels to go
Okay.
before it's
The cool thing is that depending on how like depending on how you sleep, and it tracks your heart rate and a bunch of things, it'll like set an algorithmic temperature for how you sleep over time.
Whoa.
So it'll like go
It
for me,
adjusts, yeah.
it adjusts. It'll go from like -10 through the middle of the night. It'll be at like -6, and as I'm getting closer to waking, it'll move up to -2 because
'cause your
I'm
body-
getting ready
Yeah,
to
I'm
wake
I'm
up.
sure you guys
So-
have noticed this just from sleeping is that like when you go to sleep, sometimes you're like, man, it's kind of warm in here. You have the blankets kind of off, and then you wake up 2 hours later and you're like,
Freezing.
yeah, you're really cold. So it will adjust for all that as well.
Cool.
If you want it to like mimic something different to change, because your body temperature is supposed to come down, like I think like a half a degree or something like that before bed. It really helps to kind of calm you down, so you can set the bed to be cooler when you first go to sleep, and it can warm up just a bit, you know, a couple temperature points as you're sleeping.
Cool.
I'm 100% tracking on that because like we're, you know, hey, open the window, right? Cool it down. Not very scientific on that one. And you wake up freezing your ass off maybe 4 hours later, like I got to close that window. I'm checking that one out.
Yeah, I definitely want to take a look at that.
Yeah, and then over time, you know, like they're explaining, like it'll tell you, like oh, your house is actually a little bit warmer, so we're gonna adjust your temperature. And it's like, what the hell?
Awesome.
Yeah, so like mine, I have it at -8. My wife has it at, I think, like +2 when we go to bed. It's like her side's like, holy shit, I don't know how you sleep over there. And then she's like, holy shit, I don't know how you sleep over there. But like, we don't bother each other. It's fucking phenomenal.
I mean, I'm pretty much at 39 years of managing my own sleep poorly. So I'm just going to turn it over to somebody else now at this point. Why
and
not?
then when it comes to like the technology, that like, you know, when we had the CEO on, you know, with the wearable, it's this big, right?
Yeah.
Here's a whole fucking platform and it tracks so much, like it tracks how many times you get up and like how many movements and shit that you have. It's
cow.
fucking dope.
I'm into it. Yep. I'll be getting one. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and it has a diary thing too. So like similar to the Whoop, you can input things when you wake up or when you go to sleep.
Yeah, late meal, alcohol, all that stuff.
Oh, nice.
PowerProject family, how's it going? We talk about sleep all the time on this podcast. That's why we partnered with 8 Sleep mattresses. Now, this mattress is the Tesla of sleep. It's the Tesla of beds. Its technology tracks your heart rate variability. It changes its own temperature based off the way you sleep so that you get better sleep every single night. It is quite literally insane. Check them out. Andrew, how do they get it?
Yes, and before I do that, I wanted to let you guys know that you can actually set the bed to wake you up silently. I know that sounds weird, but actually the bed starts vibrating around your head and it doesn't wake up the entire household the way my phone used to do back in the day. So now I just kind of have the bed wake me up silently and it's amazing. You guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject. That's EIGHT sleep.com/powerproject. When you guys go there, you'll see a banner across the top saying that you're going to receive $150 off automatically. So again, that's 8sleep.com/powerproject to receive $150 off your Pod Pro cover or your Pod Pro cover and mattress combo. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast.
Tell us more about your friend Bubs.
Yeah. So kind of the whole thing that kind of pulled us all together, also tied to that whole fitness. Oh, here we go.
Oh my God. Did you know this existed, Lake?
Give us the fucking story here, man. There's a
Holy
goddamn
shit.
movie on this guy, right?
Yeah, I'll pull the movie up next, but
So-
I just want to
so-
see them getting,
Oh boy.
yeah.
So that's actually at a pull-up challenge. So that's Sealfit. That's the gym that Glenn and I taught at. So again, we this is great. He's
Oh, you
about
guys know.
seven beers in at this point.
7.5 right now.
I like this guy already.
Yeah.
So you guys know Mark Devine really well then, right?
Yeah.
Mark was at my wedding.
Oh,
Mark
wow.
and I
Cool.
go way back. Yeah, he's
I
just
admire him very much. I never met him, but seems like an amazing guy.
I will plug for him to be a guest on here one day.
Oh,
'cause
I would love that.
he's an awesome
he's good,
human.
dude.
So the reason that Kershaw banner's up there, I still have that knife. Glenn did not win this challenge. He ended up getting, I think, second. So he got a really cool Kershaw knife as the consolation prize. But yeah, he's
He's got some thickness to him.
Yeah.
he was a thick dude. He was rail thin in high school, but apparently going through buds and doing the Navy thing turns into a thick human because he came out of that like 30 pounds heavier and just ready to lift a house. So anyways, he was my best buddy growing up. Like, TJ mentioned the whole D2, D4 thing. In a lot of ways, like there's this adrenaline seeking quality, or there's this like, I don't know, call it like restless leg syndrome for life, where like I'm just looking at things a little bit differently than maybe a lot of my peers were. And Glenn was simpatico with that. We always used to joke it was because we're middle
What's
children.
that word mean?
Simpatico, like
don't know.
we're in alignment. We're,
Okay. I don't think I've ever heard it
we
before.
see it together. I think I made it up.
Well, it sounds great.
It's French.
Sounds real.
So Glenn and I, we go off to college because we're supposed to go to college. And Glenn's like, I'm going to be an airline pilot. Like, what? You're like the one guy in our entire high school who decides that's his career path.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to go be a pro snowboarder. Well, that's a pretty unlikely career path as well. So we both take off to college. And again, like, we're seeing things the same way. We come back after our freshman year in college and we're both like,
Working out in jeans and sipping a beer in between sets of push-ups.
That's amazing.
and
Dope.
still
That's not
going,
Dan,
shake
that's-
it out.
Is that Taco?
I think I'm still
Look at that.
thirsty.
I'm assuming this guy had no problem with the ladies.
No problem.
He doesn't seem to give a flying fuck.
No, which works really well in the dating scene.
Yeah, right.
Look at he
Actually,
switched hands to take a drink.
If he he's like Zoolander, you can go both directions. It was amazing. So Glenn, I can't talk about him and watch this. This is epic. So Glenn was that guy. Like he's like, yeah, we should drop out of college and go move to the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's a great idea. He's like, I want to become a professional skier. And I'm like, I'm going to do the professional snowboarder. Like, let's go. We're 18, 19
Where are
years
your
old.
parents at this point?
Wildly disappointed in us. Wildly.
Let's go to the mountains and drop out of college. It's gonna be awesome.
Everybody's really thinking fully supported, but that wasn't the case.
No, not in the least bit. It was like, are you effing kidding me? So yeah, mom knew that I was struggling in college. She was like, you're not applying yourself. You're barely getting by here.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to be? And I'm like, I will go to the mountains and I will become a professional snowboarder. And she's like, just go take a semester off and like figure it out. And I remember telling my dad that plan. I'm like, Dad, this is my plan. He's like, literally gave me the Caddyshack speech. He's like, the world needs ditch diggers too. I'm like, ooh,
Your dad's like, great, my son's gay.
yeah, snowboarding. Couldn't even ski like a normal person. And that was it. So I was like, I'm going. It's on. Like now he just lit the fire. Now I'm going to make it because I can't fail.
Yeah.
Like I got to prove that shit wrong. I might dig a couple ditches along the way to pay for it, but and so we moved out to Snowbird, Utah, and like rented some shitty little apartment. Got jobs like washing dishes. Like we're talking bottom rung. And we met a bunch of other teenagers that all had the exact same dreams. And we became like the workforce of this ski resort. And we were all super passionate about just getting our butts on the snow every single day, no matter what, from November until May, like when the resort closed. It was like, we just lived it.
Yeah.
And Glenn and I were just wired that same way. And that spilled into, 4 great years of living in mountain culture. And, you have all these adventures with really eclectic people. And like we were drinking from a fountain of knowledge from like all these different walks of life. And it was like, it was what college was for a lot of people. Our college was the mountains. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. He helped push that. Like he was the instigator. He was like, if he was here in this room, we wouldn't have any room to talk because he'd be just telling stories and probably having a beer to, stay animated. And he was just this life of the party. We're turning 25 and all of our friends from high school, this is Winchester, Massachusetts, have all graduated college. Half of them are married. They all have real jobs.
Real jobs.
Real jobs. Glenn and I are waiting tables at a restaurant. I'm getting some free snowboards now. Like I'm sponsored. And Glenn's like, I haven't made it as a pro skier yet. If I haven't made it by the time I turn 25, I'm going to join the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. Now, keep in mind, this is in 1995, right? So 94 into 95. The only thing we knew about Navy SEALs back then was a Charlie Sheen movie that we rented on VHS to watch just to learn about what this career path was. But this was Glenn. It was the next big adventure.
Yeah.
I want to see what I'm made of. I want to see like what this next challenge can be. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go back to college. Like that was my big challenge. I was like, well, I kind of made it. Like I'm getting paid to snowboard. I'm getting all this free stuff. Like I'm living the dream that we came out here to live. Glenn was an incredibly talented skier, but it didn't line up. Like, it wasn't there. But he's like, yeah, I met these Navy SEALs. He was in Costa Rica on a surf trip in between the ski season. Like on one summer, he went down there for a little while. He's like, I met these guys and, they kind of got in my head and they told me I got what it takes. I'm like, all right, you serious about this? He's like, yeah, don't tell anyone. Wow. Like ski bum culture is very different than like a lot of different cultures. Like everyone's stoned. Everyone's stoned.
Yeah.
And if you're not stoned, you're going to get stoned. Or it's just a very party forward, love the outdoors lifestyle. And he's like, yeah, man, they won't get it. Like, I'm like, all right, well, tell me when you're ready. I drove him down to the recruiter, walked in there with him, signed all his paperwork. Like, okay, like you tell me when you're gone. He's like, leaving in 2 months. And that was it. Boom. He like told everyone, had a big going away party for him. And 10 months later, I'm going to his BUBS graduation.
Wow.
And like, that's the kind of guy he was. Like he would set his mind to this goal and he would accomplish it. Long-term goal. Did all the work leading up to it, right? He started doing all the push-ups, started doing all the training, all that stuff like that he could know to do. But there was no internet. Mm-hmm. There wasn't even dial-up back then. It was just, I rented this movie, I met these guys, and I want to do that. And I served 10 years at SEAL Team 3. And every time he wasn't deployed, he would come back out to Utah. So I was there for a couple more years.
Yeah.
And then we just, every chance we got, it was like getting the band back together. Like, it was my brother really. And when I got done snowboarding for a living, like I was like 29, I was winding it down and I just graduated from school and I was like, okay, I got to take this next chapter. I might join the State Department. I think that sounds like a fun job. I can still travel. I can do all these adventurous things. And, Glen's off in Iraq right now or doing some crazy shit. And, at that point, 9/11 had happened. So there's this big pivot in our nation's history. I had gotten a degree in political science. So I was like, snowboarding was great for me, but I'm ready to do something totally different. Like, what's this next challenge? And my best buddy lives in San Diego. He's down at SEAL Team 3, lives in Coronado. And I ended up getting a job. I got recruited by Burton Snowboards. So I thought I was going to the State Department. Mm-hmm. And I ended up getting a phone call from a buddy. And he's like, hey, Burton needs a new team manager. And you've been in snowboarding for a long time. And like, you know how to do this. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I've made up my mind. But I'll interview for it. Sure. Like, let's find out. So I end up going through the interview. And I think your best interviews are the ones when you don't really give a fuck. Like,
yeah,
you can just kind of say it like it is. Like, well, this is what I would do, and I would do this, and like, I don't care if you don't like it because I know I'm right. And there's a certain amount of probably cockiness in that, and they end up giving me a job offer. And it wasn't just like a job offer; it was like paid twice as much as what the State Department was going to make.
Like career.
And I was like, oh, well, this is different.
Amazing.
And I'm like, well, I already know this world; it's right there, and I'm going to travel. Travel was kind of key to me. Like, I wanted to keep having these life adventures, and snowboarding brought that to me. And I was able to go to Europe and Alaska and like New Zealand and all these places that I would never have been able to go to if it wasn't for the sport. Mm-hmm. I was like, I can keep doing that. And someone else is going to pay for it. And I'm going to make more money than I ever thought humanly possible. Okay. So the job was to move to Encinitas, California, and work with a young teenage kid named Shaun White.
Holy shit.
And I'm like, holy
dude,
shit.
Layers to this game.
Wow.
Layers.
So I'm like, all right. So next thing you know, my best buddy's down in Coronado. So I already knew people from him. All of his SEAL buddies are my buddies. So like we all would hang out on the weekends and it was like, all right, cool. I got to take this kid Shaun around and like make sure he does his homework. And then
he's like 14 or 15 maybe.
He was it was like 15, 16, 17. So he hadn't gotten his license at the beginning, but I think he had it right at the very end. He didn't want to drive. He was scared shitless to drive. Hell on a half
That sounds
bike.
really interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So Shaun was awesome. Like I got to work with him and Kathy and the Raj and like
drive. I'm still on that. He was scared with what he does. He was fucking scared to drive.
Didn't want to drive. Didn't want to drive.
Wow. Okay.
Can't explain it.
Okay.
But chuck himself off a mountain all day long. So it was phenomenal because then all of a sudden now I am going to the X Games and I'm going to these huge snowboard competitions. They're nationally televised. And I'm the guy standing behind the athlete, rubbing the shoulders, being like, you got this. It's going to be great. And then Glen's down at SEAL Team 3 and he's like, I saw you on ESPN last night. That was amazing. I'm like, yeah, we call them BGPs back then. Background props. So you want to be seen on TV and see like, which of your friends noticed you, but you're literally just wallpaper. You're just there to make sure the kid like straps in his bindings and goes down and does his thing. But it was amazing. It was like grad school for snowboarding. I mean, I learned so much from my time at Burton that, I mean, quite frankly, I think I still apply parts of it today. It's been 20 years, 20 years ago. So working with Shaun then, seeing him now was just, it's awesome. Like this kind of watching that whole career arc. And we talked about it. Like I remember when he was 16, I was like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, you don't want to be in competitions forever. Like, you want to go ride powder. You want to go like explore the mountains. And he's like, yeah, I want to win every single contest so I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I was like, lethal, good. And he's had that energy with him his entire career.
Yeah.
So it was super cool. And then like, I mean, I'll never forget in 2002 or 2003, we had a Christmas dinner at my house. My mom had rented a house in Utah. Glenn flew out. He was between deployments. So it's like Navy SEAL at the dinner table. I'm at the dinner table. My mom's at the dinner table. And Shaun and his older brother, Jesse, were in Park City and they had nowhere to go for Christmas dinner. And I'm like, well, that's not cool. Like, come on over for Christmas dinner. So, you know, Jesse drove Shaun. Shaun wasn't driving. And they come over for Christmas dinner. And now to this day, my mom's like, remember when Shaun White had Christmas dinner with us? I'm like, yes, Mom, I do.
He was so sweet.
He was such a nice little boy. So, I mean, that was kind of the world that I kind of fell into after snowboarding, was this mashup of my best buddies in Navy SEAL. So there's this militant, like, you know, side of things. And then it's all action sports athletes. So I went from Burton to then I worked for ESPN's X Games for a number of years. And then from that, I worked briefly with Tony Hawk. I managed one of his skate park tours. Wow. And then I ended up rolling up at DC Shoes, which is Quicksilver. And I managed their surf, snow, moto, BMX program. So I was just kind of in this action sports world for over a decade. And all the while, my best buddies deploying overseas, coming back. And it was cool. Like we were able to just kind of keep the band together, this tight-knit crew. And Glenn was always the epicenter of it. So like that gym setting right there, that was at a gym called Sealfit, it's owned by Mark Devine. And Glenn and I rolled into that gym in 2008. Glenn had discovered this new sport called the CrossFit.
The CrossFit.
And he was overseas on, well, understand, 14 years ago, if you were into CrossFit in 2006, 2007, 2008, like you're an old dog in that sport. And I remember like we were trying to do CrossFit at the Encinitas YMCA. This is the YMCA that's like famous because it's got a vert ramp where Tony Hawk was like learning how to do the 900. Like it's that spot. And we're in there in the gym trying to learn how to do kipping pull-ups, which is basically like watching two grown men have an epileptic seizure on a pull-up bar. And like that was us. Like these kids would be watching. I was like, what are these two doing? And
cheating on those pull-ups.
You're not wrong.
Are they even doing pull-ups?
Yeah, it's cheating.
No, they're just wiggling around like a couple of worms over there. So we're doing this in this family gym, the family YMCA. And then one day Glenn's like, hey, there's a gym in town that's owned by a Navy SEAL. His name's Mark. Mark needs us to work out at his gym. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So he's like, we're going there. And like now Glenn's animated. He's fired up. Glenn also never liked to pay retail for anything. So Glenn rolls right up to the Sealfit gym, walks in like everyone should know who he is. He's like, hey, I'm Glenn. I'm a Navy SEAL. You need me to work out at your gym. I make your gym valid because I'm a Navy SEAL. And I'm like, yeah, I'm friends with a Navy SEAL. You need me here too. And literally, Mark's like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I do need a Navy SEAL here. And next thing you know, Glenn's coaching classes at the gym. And I just kind of slid under the radar. And a year goes by, and I'm not getting charged to work out there. And the CrossFit gym memberships, they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
I got my day job. I'm the marketing director at DC Shoes. So I'm like kind of like wearing two different hats. I'm like my secret gym life at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I go in and like do the whole marketing gig.
Yeah.
And the more I did it, the more I liked it. And the more I liked it, the more I was just into it. And there was a culture behind it. It was kind of the Mark Devine Sealfit mental toughness model. And it was just sort of creeping in. It was just sort of chipping in. And the more I got into it, the more I liked it. And I realized like I was learning more about Glenn during those experiences, like 2008, 2009. And, you know, at that point we're roommates. We're two guys. We'd both gotten married. We'd both gotten divorced. And now we're two dudes turning 40, running around with all these young bucks. And I remember Mark Devine one day finally comes up to me. He's like, hey man, look it, you've been working out here for over a year. you gotta go get like your certification or something. Can you just go do something? Like, I need you to coach a class here just to justify it. It's like, I don't want to charge you.
Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, man, that's a horrible business model, but it worked out great for me. So I did. I mean, and Mark also kind of like Glenn, like when you're around someone that does, they carry an intense fire inside of them. When they ask you to do something, they're not really asking you. They're just telling you to. And so I'm like, okay, Mark, I'll go get my level 1 CrossFit certification. And this is where things get a little stupid for me. And there's a couple of names to drop in here because I didn't know any of this at the time. I was just doing what I was told. But I go to do my level 1 CrossFit certification. And there's this guy, Rory McKernan is there, who's a big TV personality in CrossFit. Rory had coached at the US CrossFit gym, Small World. And then there's this guy, Greg Glassman there, and Dave Castro, and a couple of the people that were all part of the ownership team or the original like ownership of CrossFit. And I meet them all as the marketing director of the skate shoe brand, which they thought was really cool. And I was just like, I think you get what you guys do really cool. I can't even relate to it, but I'm going to learn how to do all the different movements and so I can coach classes because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And a couple months goes by, I get my level 1 cert. Now I'm a proud teacher and I'm coaching like, 1 class a week. Glenn's around when he's not deployed. That was kind of his deal. He was in for 3 months, out for 3 months. And the whole CrossFit thing just became a culture to us. Like it became this, like our second group of friends. I was like, man, all my friends are snowboarders. All my friends are mountain bums and like, surfers. And like, that's the culture I identify with. If you're not wearing a pair of Vans shoes, like I don't really get you, or DCs at the time.
Yeah.
I had to say that. So all of a sudden there's this whole gym life and I'm like, I'm really fucking loving it because I'm figuring stuff out. I'm learning all over again. Like we were talking about earlier, like this kettlebell swing, like there's so many different ways to do it that are incredibly inefficient or efficient. Wow. I want to learn that flow. I want to figure out like how to do that. Oh, and as a byproduct, I'm snowboarding better than I have in years. My stamina, the physicality of the sport, like I'm not trying as hard as I was before. Like, whoa, there's a couple things getting unlocked at the same time. And, hell, look good naked. Like, the whole package is in there. So Glenn and I are now like, this is our life. Like we're fitnessing in the morning, chugging beers in the afternoon, like you saw in that video, and just loving it. And he was that central force in all that. So, I wouldn't take anything back from that because that helped forge a path with Mark Divine, with untapping into like what you're made of mentally. And if we hadn't found that gym or we weren't in Encinitas, that maybe that wouldn't have happened.
I'd argue to say this company wouldn't be started.
Yeah, hands down. Down.
That gym was straight up the conduit to he and I reconnecting a couple times. My first foray into meeting Shaun, not to hijack your story, was I was in an upper loft of a retail store and he popped up as the DC shoe guy. And
what year was this?
Oh God.
2012.
Oh, if you really want to rewind like super weird stuff, we've been in the same room since I was like 14 years old, like multiple times through our history. I was buying for a surf shop. We'd be shoulder to shoulder at a concert. Had no idea. Recapped that when we started the company. I was like, wait a minute, you were here? So was I. Oh my God, look, I got this from that party or whatever. Like, yeah, weird stuff.
The ski industry trade show.
Yeah.
It was called the SIA, Snow Sports of Industry of America, has an annual trade show where everyone pours out all their new equipment for the next year. So you're unveiling your entire equipment line. So like K2 and Rossignol, DC, Burton, like all the giant companies from the ski and snowboard world. It's where they unveil everything. And then all the buyers from all the stores at, REI to, your little mom and pop snowboard shop. It's where they all do their buying. So it's a really important show. And then every night there's some giant party where, all these different, like Social Distortion's going to play one night, or like just big bands would always play. And I'm like, oh, did you go to that Social D show in 2005? And he's like, fuck yeah, I was there. And, he was like, yeah, I was 15. I got snuck in the back door or whatever.
Like, shit was meant to be.
Straight up, right? Really weird. But all that saying, like I met Shaun as I was working at a retail store, basically doing some e-com stuff. He was working at DC, and he was the weird guy in Encinitas at the time, putting on fatigues and a white shirt and going to work out with the Sealfit crew. And I was just like, oh, those dudes carry logs down the 101. I'm out. Don't want to talk about this stuff. And and then I find fitness 6-7 years later, because that was probably, I don't know, I was like 25, 26, just moved out to California, find fitness a little bit later after cycling and stuff. And then we reconnect actually in a gym, not too far down the road from where Sealfit was, and hanging out with him. And I was like, hey man, how you doing? Remember you coached that one camp I was in? And like, hang out and let's work out. And that's what happened. We literally met in the gym, rekindled in the gym, and kept going. And BUBS pretty much started in one of 3 gyms probably in Encinitas.
Yeah. I mean, the Sealfit thing, the amount of stress you put your body through in different workouts. So you guys already know this, but like what Mark was creating was these weekend long events. He called them Kokoros. And he did a couple different versions of it, but the real meat and potatoes was you're training up to put yourself through between 50 and say 55 hours of consecutive training to simulate that Navy SEAL Hell Week. And he built a business around these camps, and he would do 1 or 2 of them a year. And he would bring in a bunch of former Navy SEALs. Like Glenn was one of the early coaches there. And he would basically mimic what a Hell Week experience was. Total confusion, mass overload, team building, build you up, tear you down, build you up, tear you down.
No sleep.
0 sleep.
Yeah.
Didn't know that going into it. It's just another story. And so that was Mark's kind of centerpiece. And you've got a bunch of 18 to 25-year-old kids that are testing themselves. They're paying a couple $1,000s to go through this experience to teach them what they're made of. And also,
so it's like a self-development type thing. Like it's not meant to just get in shape. It's like, are you enough for this? Are you man enough for this?
It's more mental than physical. You're going to do 5,000 push-ups, whether you like it or not. Like your weekend is going to be total hell, and you're going to be in an ice bath. You're going to have a hose sprayed in your face. You're going to have sand covered all over your body. You're going to get into the ocean and freeze, and you're going to just do it, or you're going to quit. And you don't get a refund. Like,
no refunds.
I wonder what that would look like with a Whoop band on, you know?
Red line. A lot of red line.
Full strength.
They have you sleep deprived on purpose too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%. It's all part of it. So I coached at the Sealfit. So I was doing like those 6 a.m. classes, and, I'm working my day job at DC. And Glenn and the rest of the Sealfit crew, this is like 2010, are like, hey, you got to go through the Kokoro. You got to do that. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, I'm not going in the military. I don't need to do any of that shit. Fuck you for even suggesting it, quite frankly. And then a month goes by, and they keep chipping away at me, And finally one day I'm like, sure, I'll do it. Let's go. Like, fine. Just anything to get you guys to shut up. Yeah. And they're like, oh, Shaun's doing it. We're doing the camp. So me and my really good friend, Danny Miller, are like, we're doing this thing together. And Dan is like, now at this point, I think he's like the head coach at Sealfit. And he's just a little mean badger, little bastard. And Danny Miller and I go through this whole weekend camp. So the morning of the Sealfit camp, I'm looking around and I'm like, so where do we sleep? And everyone's kind of looking at me like, right up there. See where that apartment is? Yeah, you sleep up there. I'm like, oh, okay. Huh. When do we sleep? And I had no idea. Like, I didn't do any of the research. I coached a fitness class at the gym. I did the Sealfit operator workouts. I wore the camis. We carried the logs. We did all those things as part of a functional fitness programming. But those lasted like 2 hours. It was like a big 2 hours, but it was 2 hours. Whoop, through the roof. And then you go home and you go to sleep. So I was woefully unprepared for that experience. But all of a sudden, like, you're just in it. And next thing you know, there's a hose in my face and someone's fucking screaming at you and you're getting barked at. Next thing you know, shit's flying everywhere. And then it's 2 hours later, and then it's 4 hours later, then it's 6 hours later. Like, okay, cool. Now you're going to do Murph, which is this big historic workout. And you have to do it under this time clock, but you've already been working for 6 hours. And then you're going to go climb a mountain, and not like a little mountain. It's like 20 something miles, but you're going to go rock right up it. And that's going to take you about, I don't know, say
11 hours. Yeah.
I'll get to like eat, like drink stuff.
A little bit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I shout out to Mark. Like, he's always had good medical around to keep people in line. Because I mean, at that point, like you do have a lot of people that are prepared and unprepared, and you put a lot of people through 7-8 hours of that. It's not a marathon anymore. You're going, we really got to make sure people are hydrated. We really got to make sure people are fed. Like there's going to be people that are falling apart, like wheels fully blown off real quick in 6-7 hours. So
And to clarify, this is a 55-hour thing?
yeah, it's about 55.
Starts
yeah.
Friday. It started Friday at like say 1 p.m. and it ended Sunday late afternoon.
Jesus Christ.
So I go through this thing, and I mean, I was curious about it enough, and mostly just get my friends to shut up. Then I'm in it, and then I'm like, I'm going to quit. I don't need this. Like, what the hell am I doing this for?
Uber's right outside.
And all of a sudden, you like, you got your buddy next to you, being like, no, man, you're not quitting. I'm like, fuck you. You talked me into this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, all right, I can make it another hour. And then all of a sudden, my best buddy who talked me into it, Danny Miller, is like, yo, man, I'm out. I'm done. This is stupid. And I'm like, fuck you. We're in it. And that's it. All of a sudden, I'm like, he wants to leave. I want to leave, but there are different times. All of a sudden, you're pulling yourselves together. And all of a sudden, there's some other guy over there that you don't even really know. He's got his name stenciled across him, and he's having a hard time. And all of a sudden, you're helping him out. And all of a sudden, this little glue starts to form through all this adversity, all this stress. And I'm like, oh, I kind of getting this feel for what Glenn went through. And it's actually like pulling me a little bit closer to what he's experienced.
Yeah.
And at least he was getting paid to do it. But like I go through the whole weekend. I make it through the other side. Like I make it through the whole 55 hours, and I'm just like, man, whoa. And I've been unpacking it for years. Like those different moments of weakness, strength. Where do you get it from? How do you work as a team? How do you develop that? So it all kind of comes back to that much earlier question, but like those are all things I've learned along the way, and then you develop them, and you realize those moments when you should be just going one foot in front of the other, one evolution in front of the other. Just make it one little bit, make it one little bit. Don't quit. Don't fucking quit. Whatever you do, don't quit. And that's not stupidity talking. That's determination. That's resiliency. That's tapping into things that we all have inside of us. And applying it. And I remember like getting to the other side of the camp and just being like, I was so relieved on one level. I slept amazingly.
Yeah.
And I've been using those lessons ever since. And I remember like I got an email from Glenn like a week later. He was deployed. He wasn't even around. He was in Iraq or somewhere. And he writes an email like, hey man, like I talked to Mark, heard you guys made it through. And to me and Danny Miller. And he's just like, I'm so fucking proud of you guys. Like now you've got a little window into what it's like to be on my side of things and our side of things. He's like, you guys would have been great at this job if you'd ever chosen to do so. Like, I'm so glad to have you guys through that. And it's just like ultimate awesome bonding stuff to pull from, and you pull from that time and time again. So TJ glossed over an important part for him. TJ signed up to go through the Kokoro camp. Now, I went through mine in 2010, and then I was an instructor. So I actually was Danny Miller and I were like the only two civilian instructors working arm in arm with a bunch of former Navy SEALs. Wow. So that was a big honor to me. It was like, hey, I can come in and they're granting me these evolutions to coach these guys through it. And I'm like, I'm not even qualified. Like, you guys have done the real shit. I'm just some weekend warrior, like just trying to be fit. And it was an awesome experience. TJ comes through it. So that same guy that introduced us, our buddy Tim Swart, shoots me a note and he's like, hey, you're going to see this name Ferrara stenciled across one of those chests. Make sure you give him an extra special good time. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
for it. They paid it for it.
So yeah, I hammered him all that weekend. So
you did, huh?
So when we got reconnected at the gym a year later, he's like, oh, you don't remember me? I remember you.
Yeah. Yeah. I got preferential treatment. It was a great experience.
Yeah. But you learn a lot from those experiences. Glenn, again, lightning rod around all of us, best storytelling, like life of the party. And he'd served 10 years in the SEALs. When he got out, he started contracting. Very common line of work. You've been active duty, and now you are sort of looking for that what's next thing.
Yeah.
So like for me in snowboarding, when I got done snowboarding, I had options, and I felt like I knew, like, hey, I'm leaving this career path behind me. I can't do that job anymore. Snowboarding was awesome. I'm going to go work in the industry. Okay. Like, it was enough of a transition that it felt natural, and I was able to figure it out. But a lot of these active duty guys don't. and they don't have a great support network. There wasn't that job waiting for them right on the back end that really kind of scratched the itch that specific line of service, hits on pretty good. So Glenn started contracting for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he was part of the GRS team, and he was providing security all over the world. So he'd be in Afghanistan, he would be in Iraq, he was in Mexico City, he'd be in Beirut, and every deployment was different, and the pay was like 3 times what he was getting while he was active duty. So all of a sudden he's not broke anymore, because remember, he got a divorce in the middle of all that, and that's not cheap. And so when we were roommates, he'd leave and he'd be like, I'm going to make like $150,000 this year. I made 50 when I was active duty. And I'm like, that's really hard to say. No, that's kryptonite money. Like, you get stuck in that mode. Well, the job kept getting harder and Glenn kept getting older. So all of a sudden, like I said, we were 2 guys turning 40. We're both going through this whole like great, fitness world where we're trying to be the best versions of ourselves in the gym and like just have that energy. But those are still 18-hour days in full combat gear, running around doing the job. And in September of 2012, like, we had this big talk right before what was supposed to be his last deployment. He's like, man, I got a plan. I know what I'm going to do. This is after, 5-6 years of, maybe I'll go back and become a pilot. Maybe I'll go and become a firefighter. Maybe I'll do this. Like, there was all different ideas and none of them stuck. And it's like, okay, I'm going to become a physician's assistant. I'm going to go to school at the University of Utah. I'm going to move back to Salt Lake. It's going to be really tight. I'm going to just budget tight, and I'm going to get my degree. This will be my last deployment. And he was stationed in Tripoli. So Tripoli in 2012, it was right after the fall of Gaddafi, and, U.S. forces weren't allowed in. So he, they had to navigate a bunch of paperwork with the CIA, and next thing you know, he's stationed in Tripoli. And this is like September 6th, 7th. Like, it was right after Labor Day. We had a big shindig thrown away. Yeah. And I'd sent Glenn off to the airport, I don't know how many times, like, a dozen. And in all of those times, this was the one that felt different. And I can't get all woo-woo on it other than to say it just was different. And I just remember talking to him about it, like, all the way right out the door, like, hey man, be careful over there, be careful. He touches base with me, like, right while he's over there, writing emails back and forth, like, hey, don't kill my fucking plants, and, make sure you keep everything going in the house. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's 9/11, and it's 11 years after the 9/11. It's 9/11, and something pops up on the news right before bed, and it's like, a terrorist attack in Benghazi, Libya is happening. And I'm like, all right, this is like the last thing I'm seeing on the news. I fired Glenn off a quick email, still have it. It's like, hey Glenn, man, be careful over there. Like, some weird stuff's going down. And I think I Google mapped it or something to look at. I'm like, oh, Benghazi's like 3 hours away from Tripoli. Glenn's not.
And there's water in between. It's fine.
Yeah. There's he's ways away from that. I wake up the next morning and it's all over the news. Like, terrorist attack in Benghazi, Libya. There's a U.S. ambassador. Chris Stevens is, like, no one knows where he is. And everything's kind of unknown. Like, what it's like in those real life news cycles. Yeah. Like, you're just getting fed little inches of information. And I go to the gym, go to Danny Miller's gym down in Del Mar, and go get a workout in. And I'm leaving the gym. And, like, I'd gotten a phone call that morning from one of Glenn's old teammates, this guy Brandon Webb, and Brandon's like, yo man, like, there's some weird stuff's going on, but don't worry, like, Glenn's in Tripoli, like, he's way far away from it. I'm like, yeah, it's pinging your radar, it's pinging my radar, like, okay. And I'm leaving the gym, and my phone rings, and it's a phone number I don't recognize. It's a local area code, but it's, it's not a number. Normally 9 times out of 10, I don't answer that call. That's what voicemail's for. You haven't figured out to be in my address book, I'm not answering it. And some little voice just said, answer this one. So I answer the phone, and it's like, is this Shaun Lake? Yes. I need you to return to your home at 165 Rodney immediately. And I'm like, okay. And I hung up the phone. I'm sure there were other details. I don't remember those. I just remember driving home, and I'm like absolutely white knuckled. And I'm like, oh fuck. Okay. Not drawing any conclusions yet. Glen's hours away from there, man. Like no negative talk, any of that shit. No, we're good. I pull up to my house and there's 2 black SUVs parked directly in front of my house. This is straight out of the movie shit. And all the doors pop open and a half dozen CIA operatives in black suits, black ties, like the whole thing are standing out front. And I'm like, how bad is it? And they're like, let's go in and sit down and talk. And they just broke it down. They're like, this is what we can tell you. Glen responded to the attacks in Benghazi. He made it from Tripoli. It was a 3-hour flight down to Benghazi. And Glen was killed saving all those lives. I'm like, how? Like, he died from a mortar attack on the rooftop. We're still getting details, and it was still very fresh. And so what I've learned since then, and anyone who's seen the movie 13 Hours, or you might remember when Hillary Clinton got in a boatload of trouble for that and those, all those congressional hearings, was that, that's definitely the Hollywood take on it. I'd like to say it was that beautiful over there, but none of the photos I saw were. But yeah, Glen was stationed in Tripoli. The CIA annex in Benghazi was, a small little outpost. They were all there to I think try to mitigate shoulder fire missiles or something like that from getting in the wrong hands because it was such an unstable government. And when the attacks happened at the State Department consulate in Benghazi called the CIA annex in Benghazi and we're like, we're under fire. We need some help. So that was the start of it. CIA annex says, well, we got to call up to Tripoli and let the big bosses know that's where Glen was. Glen was, up in Tripoli and the whole stand down order thing came through. And that's largely true. Like there was definitely that, like, hey, don't jump in and do anything yet. That doesn't really work with a bunch of warfighters. So for Glen's side, he's like beating his head against the wall. And this is one of my favorite parts of this, which wouldn't be in a movie or that, was Glen's efforts to get from Tripoli down to Benghazi. Keep in mind, it's a 3-hour plane ride. So it's not like you're just hopping in the car and rolling down there. Was that he was trying to call his bank in the United States to pull out all of his money and wire it to a local sheik in Tripoli to rent his plane, tens of thousands of dollars, to hop into that plane to fly it down to Benghazi. Like bananas. That's Glen right there. That gesture of running to help his friends at all costs is my best friend. And, his bosses eventually relented. They found a plane. Glen didn't have to dip into a savings account to do it. He jumps in there with some Delta Force guys and some other special operators, and he flies from Tripoli down to Benghazi. He has to navigate local police forces and crazy shit like that, and he gets into the CIA annex just long enough to apply first aid and help a bunch of guys out that were all banged up from the other annex, get them healed up, jump up on that rooftop and start giving it to the bad guys before they eventually got him. And that, I'm not going to watch that, but that part of it, the fact that he went into the fight, that he chose, he pulled everything that he could to go in there and stand by his friends, his teammates, and save all those lives, it's a fire that still lights me up today. I'm like, no matter what I'm going through, how bad can it be? And you have this example that brought so many people light. Like Glen was this lighthearted, loving individual, but he would move mountains to help you out. If you needed something, he's there. And man, we could all use that in a best friend, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we now we have a company that we get to remember him by and hopefully inspire others to just do something beyond themselves, live a better life, just push yourself a little bit farther, go enjoy the great outdoors, go use this body for what it was meant to. So yeah, that was my buddy Glen.
Do you have any family that was? Yeah,
and I should say, actually, to tie that back in, his call sign in the Navy was Bub.
Okay.
So that's why we call the company BUBS Naturals. It's a tribute to Glen and the things that he stood for. And so when Glen died, I was the executor of his estate. I was in charge of all of his legal affairs, the power of attorney, all that stuff, which is a little uncommon. Normally, if he was married, it would have been his wife, but he wasn't. So we had this big ceremonial exchange of like, hey man, when I die, you get all my debt, you get all my crap. All right, well, same for you. And so we made our wills out to each other, and my wife was actually the witness to sign off on that stuff back then. And it was all very lighthearted, but Glen, he didn't choose to say, I want all my belongings to go to he had an older brother and a younger sister, just like my family was set up. And his mom and dad were both still alive.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want you to take all my stuff and I want you to throw the most amazing party ever. I mean, go send it. And then anything that's left over, I want you to use it to take our friends surfing and skiing and take them on epic adventures. So to this day, I've worked with the same financial advisor. I took Glen's, after Glen passed, we settled the estate and did all that. And I pray no one ever has to go through that experience of like dealing with the red tape of like debt and reconciling credit cards and bank accounts and all that crap. But I got through it and I said, okay, I know what Glen asked me to do, but it doesn't sit right with me. Like, I don't need Glen's money to like do this sort of thing. I said, I think Glen's family could use that as a way to remember him by. So we took the money, we divided by 4. Gave his mom, his brother, and his sister each got 3/4 of what was left over in Glen's estate. It wasn't much. We're talking like, a couple $1,000s here. And then I'm going to take the rest of it and I'm going to invest it. And I'm going to use Glen and I shared the same financial advisor, this guy, Tim Payne out of Utah. And I'm like, Tim, you got to grow this money. And we're going to go have epic adventures with this money. And to this day, we're almost 10 years since Benghazi now. I challenge him every year. I'm like, if you can get this account over this amount of money, I'll take you heli skiing. Better do your job. Mike might be vying for this one. Mike Niddle now. He's listening in. But it was, it was a unique thing to not have his family involved, but they're still involved. Kate, Glen's little sister, it was her idea to start the Glen Doherty Memorial Foundation. So keeping Glen's memory alive was something that was very, very important to us. Like, we didn't want to lose his memory. He was too bright in the room, man. He was too much of that, that influence for all of us.
Yeah.
So foundation made sense, right? Like, people die, you start a foundation. And we're like, well, what was the problem that Glen couldn't solve for? And this is where Kate was like, she nailed it. She's like, well, he never figured out what he was going to do next. So why don't we put a tool in the tool chest to help special operators and their families figure that out? Fill gaps in the GI Bill, help pilot on with scholarships so that they can actually get that transition out, educate themselves, and re-enter the workforce. So it's one small foundation out there that are just trying to do good things. And, his family can be a part of that and celebrate that. And they get to celebrate it by seeing scholarship recipients get that money, go to flight school, go get your MBA, go do whatever that thing is, and then go on with it. Know that you're playing a small role in helping someone achieve a better result. It's kind of like coaching, right? Like, I learned something from you today, and I relish those opportunities to learn. And I know as a teacher, when I get to share things once in a while, I love those. Like, it's so satiating in a way that I never knew was possible until I started practicing it.
What was the initiation of starting the actual company?
So my wife's a little bit younger than I am. My wife, Heather, is 14 years younger than I am. And in 2017, we had a 1-year-old, and she was pregnant with our second. And she's a newscaster. So she is an on-air personality with Fox News down in San Diego. And she came home from one of her segments and she said, hey, I just discovered collagen protein. And you're going to start taking this because your knees sound like wrinkled up newspaper when you walk up a flight of stairs. And you're not getting any younger. And I need to preserve your old ass. And it was true. Like, I was 44, 45 years old. I was slowing down in the gym. I was having a lot of aches and pains.
He was broken.
No, he just wants to add that
No, I'll
in.
call it, because we were working
true.
out together, and it was like, okay, let's get some Penley rows or something, and 135, and it's just shattering on him. I'm like, oh, dude, you got spine issues. There's something going on here. And then just, work stress. We were kind of work dating before with a different project, and it was just compounding. And I'm like, oh yeah, dude, this is the midlife that I don't want to live. That sucks. Like you look like you're hurting right now. It wasn't
Hurting.
good. Just straight hurting. Like if somebody was really uncomfortable lifting, you're like, you don't want to just stop doing that. But but that's not going to happen when it's two dudes in a garage, right? It's like, no, keep going. You're doing fine. So collagen turned him around.
So yeah, I mean, we had been working on a couple of projects, and Heather just, I do what my wife says. Okay, successful rule to a marriage, maybe just listen to your wife. But she's like, no, I heard this is supposed to be great for your joints. I'm like, collagen. I'm like, isn't that the stuff that like porn stars inject into their lips? Like that's what I think of. Yep. Thank you. So I'm like, okay, apparently now it comes in a powder form. And this was all new to me. And she said, look, I did some reading. It's heat tolerant. Just put it in your coffee in the morning. I drink coffee every day. No problem. So I throw in my coffee, dissolves in, drink it. Week goes by, drink it. I'm just doing it every day. I will burn through this jar. And to me, as a supplement skeptic, it will not work. So I don't really care, but I'll do your little experiment and it'll be cute. And I go 3 weeks into it and I'm like, where are the nail clippers? And why am I asking where the nail clippers are? What the hell's happening? But I had a data point and I was like, this is interesting. Now I wasn't doing anything else diet wise. There wasn't any other change. Like we eat very similar style, kind of paleo Mediterranean style foods. There wasn't any like wild extra supplementation going on.
So you were already like pretty healthy at like, as far as your nutrition, all that stuff at this point.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So that part I dialed in like after 40. So the beer chugging pull-up contest was awesome. But we balanced that with a pretty good healthy diet. And Heather's certainly a huge proponent of just good eating habits. Like it's not like we didn't have pizza, on the beach with friends. Like there's always those, those moments where, hey, like this is fun too. But 9 meals out of 10, you're eating pretty squared away. So this was the big change, was adding this collagen into my diet. So 3 weeks in, fingernails are growing like crazy. And I noticed that. I'm like, this is weird. Then about a week later, I needed a haircut. And I just gotten a haircut, but I'm like, I need another haircut. Okay. And it was at the 2-month mark was like, and I had an absolutely epiphanal oh shit experience where we had to pack up my 1-year-old, my pregnant wife, and fly from San Diego to Boston. Coach class in the back. I'm 6'3". My knees are practically up in my chest. And I am fumble fucking around with all the accessories you need for a small child. And I mean, like, I can't believe how much crap you got to bring to keep this small human alive. And I get off the airplane and I'm walking out and I'm like, oh my God, I feel great. And Heather's like, that's nice, dear. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I feel amazing right now.
Yeah.
What is in that collagen? And she's like, collagen? I'm like, my knees don't hurt at all. Like, I feel awesome. So for me, it felt very instantaneous. But the fact is, it took 2 months for me, of taking this product consistently every single day. And right then I knew I was in for life. So a couple more months goes by. I feel better and better and better. I'm running, I'm squatting, I'm throwing up some weight around again, for me. And I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like I just got 10 years back in my life. That's when TJ comes over to the house. Mr. Money over here, just thinking in a completely different fashion than where I am. Rolls over to the house and he's like, oh, you take that collagen stuff, huh? I'm like, oh yeah. It's amazing. I start gushing about how great I feel. He's like, cool. We should start a company. I'm like,
that was it.
I got a 1-year-old in diapers crawling around behind me and you want to start a company right now? I don't think so, man.
Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm like, no, dude, you got a fat Rolodex. I'm going to leverage that whole thing.
Yeah.
But full disclosure, I've been in e-commerce my entire life, 25 years. I'm just selling stuff online. I just know how to make a register ring on the computer. About 3 years prior, as collagen was starting to come up in terms of, hey, there's a new supplement on the market. What's it do? Apple cider vinegar gummy, same thing. We watched a big ramp up with that. Well, collagen, we were kind of in the middle of that ramp up. And I happened to be doing an Amazon arbitrage business at the time out of my garage with another collagen and MCT brand. And I was doing really good, like really good, very lucrative. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. Oh, he's into that. We were already work dating, pitching 20 projects. We had a bunch of consulting stuff up. And literally it was like one of those days where you're like, man, if all of these hit, we're going to have a great year and this is going to be super fun. None of them hit. Like One day happened and they all shut down, like 30 projects at once. They're just like, nope, can't afford it. Nope, not going to do it. Taking it in a different direction, whatever. And I was just like, oh God. So the next morning, walk over to his house, just got collagen on the table. Cool, let's start a company. Me knowing, oh yeah, we can really ramp this thing up and it's going to be fine. Never did a CPG business before. I was always reselling. So from there, it was just like a learning curve, trial by fire. It was like, okay, cool. I know how to run online. We know a little bit about manufacturing. Let's go.
It was, yeah, I mean, it was full learn. Like in that moment, like there was no way I was starting a company.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, all right, but let's game it out, right? We're sitting here sipping coffee. We're just talking about all the crappy contracts we're not going to get. What would a company look like? And we both looked at each other and said at the exact same time, and this was like the defining lightning bulb moment. Well, whatever we do, we have to do something cool for charity. Opening line. Both said it. Totally different
Something
reasons.
cool for charity was said together out of both of our mouths at once. And it was like, all right, that's it. We're doing something, whatever it is.
That was it. So I just lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm like, well, I know the charity. It's got to be Glen's charity. And this is exactly the kind of product that Glen would have taken when he was alive. Like if collagen existed back then, he would have been all over it. Glen was this guy that stood for self-improvement, reading books, college degree, fitness in the gym, you name it. He was always leveling up.
Yeah.
And Glen was always helping others. So we started a company called BUBS Naturals as a tribute to Glen and his way of life. Every product we make will stand for self-improvement, and we'll give 10% of all profits to Glen's charity and charity in Glen's name. Sound like a good idea? We had no idea. But we're like, you know, the one thing we knew was like the world didn't need another collagen brand. Like there was already the giant Nestle brands that were running around out there. There was already Kardashians talking about it, like supermodel wafy shit. We had a completely different like thought process on what it could be used for and quite frankly should be used for. And it just felt right. So I called up Glen's sister, called his mom, I called a couple of Glen's former teammates, and I was like, hey guys, like, what do you think about this? And they all came back with the exact same response. Glen would kick your ass if you didn't do this. You got to go. And we're like, okay, we got to learn this industry. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah. We just started rocking.
Yeah. And you know, the interesting thing we were talking earlier about collagen, and collagen proteins, like it's one of those things that takes a while to build up. You know what I mean? Like people take pre-workout, you feel it immediately. People take stimulants, you feel it immediately. As you were talking to me about like some of the individuals, you know, that like they had collagen's like something they swear by. It was like after a few months. And even yourself, it's like, oh wow, by 60 days, I'm feeling way different. Like you had these little things like your nails, your hair, etc. But your joints, it took a while for that. So you need a level of consistency with taking this to be able to reap those results.
Yep. So I mean, I will ask you this question. Mark, you've had our product now. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon introduced us. Like, I feel like it was right when the pandemic was starting. It was like two years ago. And she's like, Shaun, just send Mark some stuff. And I knew who you were. And I sent some stuff up. And how often do you use it? Like how often in your say per week?
I use it almost every day.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
How about you, Nsima?
The collagen protein?
Yes.
The collagen protein maybe once or twice a week.
Got it.
And as far as the MC2 oil, I use the MC2 oil every day. But like for me, as far as the collagen's concerned, I didn't realize that it was one of those things that like you probably should just be taking it more consistently because I have protein that I use. So I was like, well, I'm just going to use it every now and then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really exciting because I know people who have talked about it. I know people who have reaped benefits from it. It's just I haven't been super consistent, but that's one of those problems with me and some supplements every now and then. Like electrolytes I use every day because I perform every single day.
Right.
Collagen, I do perform every day, but since I don't feel it, I'm one of those people who are like, fuck, I need to have a reminder to continue to take this because I know it's going to reap benefits. So you need to be consistent with that.
I frame it kind of as a gas tank thing, right? You got a 240 gallon gas tank, so to speak, right? And at 25, your tank topped off and then it just started to deplete. So where are you at 35? Do you have a half a tank? Do you have 3/4 of a tank? Like, what does it look like? And also, because you have a 240 gallon gas tank, a big body of strong shit that you got to fuel, 10 grams ain't going to do it. 20 grams, 30 consistently. Like I can't fill another 35 gallons just by doing one 10 gram scoop. 3 times a week.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do 4 scoops a day consistently to get the tank back up.
Well,
And once it's back up, you're good to go. You're in maintenance mode.
so that's it. It's the idea of maintenance mode. Like you haven't had the same kind of breakdown that I've had, and I hope you never do.
But I
Like,
feel shit. Like I feel certain things where I'm just like, oh shit. Like I just like that's why I do a lot of stuff in the gym to try to make sure I'm feeling better. But that would actually work. That's the MC2 oil powder, but like I should be taking that collagen much more often than I do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start.
Well, that's a challenge. So I sense a challenge. We're going to do a 60-day challenge. If you're up for a challenge,
I'm down.
all right. I would challenge Mark on this one, but Mark's already hit it. This is a 7-day a week. You don't skip a day. It's every single day, no matter what. Now, from my side, I promise you'll have plenty of travel packets and tubs. You will not be for want on that.
Thank you.
60 days, pay attention. See what's happening along the way. And then whether, just write it down like, oh yeah, I noticed my fingernails are growing. Like that's a physical change happening in your
It'd be
body.
cool if you guys recovered my hairline.
Well,
I think that's.
I think there's a half-row maybe that could come up from this.
That's funny.
So and Mark, kind of same for you. It's like, it's the consistency, 20 grams a day, 30 grams a day, eat for your body mass, but do it every single day and see if that doesn't make a difference. Cause I went on it and went off it and like went back on. I was like, all right, is this just placebo effect? Am I like, I noticed this happened. I know the hair happened, but what happens when I stop? And it wasn't pretty. Now that's me. And I got a lot of years on you, but the fact is, like for me, knowing that it works, having done the research behind it just reinforces that, like, hey, if you take it every day, like you take a multivitamin, if you're going to drink water every day, you can take collagen.
Dump
If
some
you're
collagen in it.
if you're going to drink coffee every day, you can take your collagen. It's just going to make it a part of your daily routine. Just work it in. Now, MCT oil, functional creamer world over
I
here.
love that shit.
That's for sure an everyday thing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that one, those are immediate benefits, right? If you're in tune with it, like caffeine, right? Spike up, and then in the afternoon, oh fuck, I need another cup of coffee. MCT is that energy playthrough. You just get the energy in the morning. You have those healthy fats in your system, and it just stays. All of a sudden, there's no afternoon coffees. You just save $5 a day on that afternoon coffee. You don't need it anymore. And then the mental focus, like I don't know where you guys kind of weigh in on that in terms of like cognitive function. I swear I think just a little bit clearer, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Hanging around with big brain over here. But like that one is immediate. So like MCT, you can go on it, you can go off it. It's you're only going to feel those positive effects the day of. Collagen is a lifetime game. Like this is long game stuff. I want to be in the gym in my 70s. I want to snowboard well as long as I can. This is one tool that's going to help me get there. All the stuff we talked about in the gym today is also going to help me stay doing those things. I want to go ride my mountain bike and mob downhill sometime. And I don't want to not have the body that can do that. And again, like I say that now at 51, but at 61, I don't imagine my brain is going to be thinking like a 61-year-old. It's going to still be 25.
Yeah.
Still want to go and do some dumb shit. And I want to be able to have fun doing it. So it works. So 60-day challenge. Every single day, couple scoops a day. And we'll shoot me a text with your picture of your fingernails.
No, I'm gonna do it because like I like the way you think in terms of the longevity aspect of things. It's like we do a lot of athletic stuff. I mean, I go to jujitsu, I come back home, my wrists are fucking kind of just sore for a few days, even though I keep doing it. It's just the more things that I can add into it, that's gonna keep me good in the long run. I'm fucking down for.
And also maybe not take a whole lot of extra time.
And not take a whole lot of extra time. Exactly.
Scoop, boop, right in your coffee.
For me, 3, but exactly.
But it works right in. Like same thing for you. Like I'm eating your protein. And when I'm eating your protein, my protein goes right into your protein. And I'm just adding to it for different purposes. And they work, they're peas and carrots, man. They work right next to each other. So for everyone out there who's like, yo, I just want to get bigger and get yoked, that's awesome. Like all of your stuff works great for that. I'm just here to complement it. Like, so everyone who's thinking about their various protein sources, this is your add-on. This is just your extra that's just going to help you recover better, help with those joints. What it's going to do for your gut health, you don't even know until you get on that. Like, you are going to have the best poops of your life in 2 months from now.
Oh, that shit's been happening.
Well, some
Because we eat jars of those gummies.
Those gummies.
Gummies will do it, right? Apple cider vinegar.
some people, there's some evidence, but there's not a lot at the moment, but there's some evidence that collagen might work as almost like a fiber. You know, you hear so many people talk about fiber and gut health, and it's a little bit almost controversial because a lot of the carnivore people have kind of shown that maybe we don't need fiber as much as we thought. But maybe traditionally people used to get fibrous like substances through stuff like collagen when other types of food were like more scarce. So it's interesting. It'd be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. Totally. But my own personal experiences, it feels great. You know, it feels like it is something that is helping heal the gut. And I've had a lot of different experiences with many different things other than just, you know, going from a time period where I didn't have any milk to a time period where I did have milk. So there's been other factors that have played into it, but I can drink milk now and not have any ill effects that I used to have from lactose. I think I kind of almost made myself lactose intolerant at a certain point because when I was young, I drank milk. As I got older, I got away from it. I was like, I don't really need the sugar. I like whole milk. So I was like, that's a lot of calories. So I parted ways with things that have a lot of lactose in it, like milk. But just the other day, I bought some raw milk. Was able to slam it, had no problems, no issues. At least I hope not. Yeah. And so I think that things like that are playing into helping to heal my gut.
Yeah. You know, the idea of connective tissue health, like collagen at the end of the day is a connective tissue protein. So you got more collagen in your body than any other protein. Your large and small intestines. So all those gut bacteria that are living in your large intestine, they kind of don't have a roof without collagen. So there's a little like membranous layer, those bacteria are exposed. So you go out and you have, whether it's a big night of drinking or eating like nightshade vegetables or eating the wrong type of foods, you know it because you're going to you're going to Jackson Pollock a toilet the next day. It's not going to be pretty. And those bacteria are being ripped apart and then they have to rebuild. Collagen's like putting a little roof over their head. They just got a little weathering from the storm that you're going to put your body through, and they're going to do their job better. So that's kind of like the gut health benefit is the way I always talk about it. I'm like, yeah, you just put a little roof over their head so that they can keep doing the job that they're there to do. Process your foods, get the most nutrients out of it, get rid of the bad stuff you don't need. And like we have a running joke at the office, I call it the ghost wipe. And I'm like, if I can go sit down on the toilet and get up and just walk away clean, that's a ghost wipe day.
Yeah, I call that an ace because, you know, there's no return on it when you serve it up.
Tapered shits.
That's awesome.
Way to go.
Yeah.
When's the last time you guys had a ghost wipe? Because I'm trying to think. Like, I take pretty large shits, and I
legit. I mean, partial plug, but yeah, when we were downing those bottles of the apple cider vinegar gummies, like I was dropping some awesome loads with those. Yeah.
So quick story time, guys.
Loads.
They sent us like 30 of those, and like we're children, so like we'll eat one, and they taste so fucking good that like you guys say on the bottle 2 is a serving. No one does that shit. You know it.
No.
Like
they go through half the bottle.
Don't act like, you guys know exactly what the fuck you're doing making those things taste like that. So we finished all 30 within like,
I don't know, 30 days?
It was less than 2 months.
That's awesome.
So, hey, yeah.
I mean, like, I got a text from Mark. You said, literally, don't send this to my house anymore. Just stop.
Yeah, they're so good.
Yeah, and then you send a whole giant box of them.
And then you give them to us.
We enjoyed it.
I was like, I can't handle these. I keep eating them.
I'm just here to test you. This is just one big test.
That's great.
They're fucking delicious.
PowerProject family, how's it going now? We've partnered with BUBS Naturals, and they're an amazing brand. They have this just wonderful MCT oil powder that I put in my coffee in the morning, and they have this collagen protein. Most people don't get the amount of collagen that they need in. All mix well in anything, coffee, water, whatever. It's also Whole30 approved. But the thing I want to talk to you guys about real quick are these apple cider vinegar gummies. Now, if you go on Google and you type in apple cider vinegar, there's tons of benefits. Immune support, metabolism, digestion can, oof. But one thing you'll also come across is apple cider vinegar tastes like shit.
It's bad.
It's really bad. That's why they came out with these crack gummies. The reason why I call them crack gummies, and it's an empty little package of them, because we can't not eat a lot of them at once. They're really good for you, don't get me wrong, but they also taste really good. And it's hard to only eat 2 at once, and the serving size is 2. So you guys should get this. you should only have 2.
Good luck.
Good luck. But the benefits of apple cider vinegar actually from these gummies, I noticed that honestly, it's helped my digestion a lot. So
A ton.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has helped me, hit the bathroom a lot more consistently. Mark always talks about, may your shits be tapered, and I guarantee you with those, they will be.
They will be.
But just, please don't eat the entire bottle the way we do, but they're that good. And, I have tried apple cider vinegar and all that stuff, and it made me sick. I felt real bloated, and I couldn't be consistent with it. With this, it's very easy to stay consistent.
We're too consistent.
A little bit too consistent. Yeah. But head over to bubsnaturals.com and make sure you guys enter promo code PowerProject to save 20% off your entire order. Again, bubsnaturals.com, promo code PowerProject to save 20% off. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I want to shift gears a little bit because I feel that CJ over here knows TJ, my bad.
It's all good. Don't
TJ
worry.
over here
It's the kratom. Don't worry about it.
knows a lot of really interesting stuff because you've touched upon a bunch of little interesting things here and there. And I'm like, this guy knows weird shit. We love sharing weird shit with people on this show. Look at how happy he's
I
getting.
know. That's it. He was like, you got to be on this. You know the weird shit. And I'm like, I don't know the weird shit, but I can try.
Yeah. So we were talking in the gym a little bit about Tony. Is it Blauer? Is that and Tony Blauer shares a lot of information about like the hands and stuff. Can you go into with your Taekwondo background? I'm sure there's a lot of neat stuff that you know.
Well, I mean, not much. I was put into martial arts at a very young age to curb probably attitude issues for my parents, but I excelled at it pretty quick, and I was like one of the youngest black belts when I was like 12 or 13 or something like that. It does absolutely nothing right now. Like, we go roll, you destroy me. Like, trust me. Being in a fight with a performance artist, basically, like, I'm never going to kick you. That shit's going to end on the ground. We know where combat sports actually end, right? So it doesn't do anything in terms of my credibility. I just happen to be good at something for a hot minute. However, the Blauer stuff, I think, is he's on to something. That dude has backgrounds in 4 or 5 different styles. He's a black belt all over the place. He was head of CrossFit Defense for a while. He was doing clinics and stuff. But one of the things that we were talking about in the gym is his system is always splayed hands for defense, because that's like startle response, right? Something comes up, airbag comes up. You want to be like this, you know? So his whole defense system is you're interacting with somebody. You're coming off splayed hands. But one of the connections on that is always to keep your neck up. Because as you're
like
going
neutral,
neck's neutral and just in line with your spine. Because as you're going out and somebody's trying to break this and get out of your engagement, the second your neck goes away, all of this engagement goes away, and your arms will break super fast. Yeah, I said Khalipa. No, he has one.
Arms will break, as in like bend.
Yeah, they'll
and be able to be
super
moved
fast. Yeah,
easier.
so your ability to put your arm out and have somebody break at the elbow exacerbates as your head goes up and down. So there's all this connective stuff that kind of goes into it that I always find like little nuances and pockets. And I'm like, wait, oh, that's cool. And I bet you that can be applied in 30 different areas.
It's interesting you bring up the hands, because I was saying, like, if you heard like a gunshot, you would you would be you automatically your hands. I don't think the go-to is to squeeze your hands together.
Yeah, and it's just he's controlling his aggressor's movement basically by keeping his fingers out, everything tight, and just controlling outside around the neck, and that's all it is. That's another guy you should have on here. I mean, his story's wildly incredible.
Yeah.
Just a captivating dude, and he's got, depending on how deep he goes into his history, he's got some really, really rad stuff.
We got
Huge
some
heart.
hitters, guys, from down in Encinitas. We got a few people for you there. Tony Blauer, Danny Way. There's a couple folks I think you guys have a blast talking to.
Yeah.
And you were there early days of CrossFit and stuff. Did you get way deep into CrossFit as well?
I did. So I was, I mentioned I was a competitive cyclist for a while. My endurance background was really, really big, which is incredibly dangerous when you get somebody that doesn't know how to move weights really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the injuries just went through the roof. Swinging a 70-pound kettlebell, I'm like, wait, I think my thoracic just herniated. This is not good. And it was months upon months of that before I actually built true core strength. I went into a CrossFit gym. I couldn't do one pull-up. I'm not kidding. Like, straight up, I could not pull myself from a dead hang up. I was a cyclist, and it was waist down and everything else. I wouldn't even bring groceries into the house. It was like, my mental was like, nope, I'll build muscle. I'm not doing it. I'll eat a pint of blueberries for dinner and that'll be it.
So also within cycling, it's like a thing where they don't want to build muscle, or at the time.
Yeah, at the time. And I think now it's changed a little bit depending on the discipline. Like there's a lot of people cross training and stuff. And I think after kind of the whole Lance movement went through and he came back in the action unretired 3 or 4 times, like people started realizing, hey, we should probably concentrate on a 360 holistic version of fitness, opposed to just you're riding for 18 hours, just keep going. So it had exposure along the way. And, again, my endurance engine was good. So when somebody gave me lightweight or body weight and said, send it, no problem. Like I'll be at the top of the gym. Not a big deal. When it came to heavyweight, shattered me. So that was the challenge for me. It was like, oh, wait a minute, I just want to be stronger now. My endurance is still good. I'll have no problem with this. I won't lose it. And if you arguably train for a true endurance sport and like peak, you time and time again, year and year again, you understand what your window's like to get that peak fitness back. And with age, it might be extended a little bit. But when you're within range, you're 4 to 6 weeks away from being lethal for the most part at all times.
And by the way, you're like 41, right?
39. Yeah.
You're 39.
Yeah.
I was curious for both of you guys, and actually you too, Mark. I don't know if you're feeling this, but like, what are you guys noticing? Like older athletes that are in like their late 30s, 40s, 50s, because like it's interesting that you guys got into lifting a bit late.
Yeah.
But we just did this workout with Jason Kalipa. Both y'all are pretty fucking shredded, strong, and this isn't like I've been lifting and stuff since I was 13. Well, I'm 29 now. Like you've been lifting since you were super young. Your experience is very interesting since you guys didn't start doing that until later. So what are some things that you're noticing, like with a lot of individuals you talk to, are hurdles for older athletes? I'm not saying you're old, but
No. I mean, I would say the friend circle is wide. It's not just the fitness crowd. Like we have people kind of all over the map. But one of the things that I'll say is truly is mobility is the limiting factor. And that's what goes first for most people. And that is, I would argue to say is probably the biggest issue with most people getting into a lifting, putting their body in a good position naturally and being able to get to, I would not even say a full depth squat, but be able to sit down on a toilet on your own without having to use the counter to get up and stuff like that. Yeah. I watch a lot of those patterns go away really fast with my friends, like my parents. Oh, I want to get into sport again. I'm like, Dad, you quarter squat, that's it. Like we're going to have to work around a lot of these things. So I watch mobility generally go away faster, which I think is why we see this paradigm shift in fitness in general of people really exacerbating knees over toes, full mobility in your shoulders and everything like that. And it's like, hey, we don't have to lift super heavy. We need to go for longevity now. There's a performance aspect to all of this, and I respect the hell out of it, and I love training for a goal. But if the goal's life, let's figure that out. And that's a long goal. Like, I want to be able to play with kids that I may have one day. And that's it.
Think back, what are some of the reasons why maybe you don't have to work on mobility when you're young? It's because you run and you jump and you do, and as we get older, we might go years and years and years, and in some cases decades, without getting into like a full squat position, without doing hardly any kind of jumping, without doing any kind of throwing. Like there's some age that you get to and you go to throw a ball to a kid and you go, holy fuck, that really hurt. Like when did that happen? Because you don't remember that as a kid.
Yeah.
Remember as a kid, you could throw shit as hard as you wanted. And then as you get older and your son or somebody says, hey, throw a bomb to me, you go throw it and you're like, not only could I not throw it nearly as far as I used to, but that actually fucking hurt a lot. You're like, when did this happen?
Right? So that touch point there, he said mobility as a limiting factor. I say mental. Like when I look at it and what I'm seeing is more like, I don't want to do that. That might hurt. And it's a totally
pain is at the center of it all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so the mobility is one side, but there's a mental barrier there. And the longer you wait, the more that barrier builds up. Like you just don't see a lot of women lace up for the first time in their 40s and say, I'm going to go run a marathon. And when you do, it's super inspiring and everyone's really can rally around that and get motivated by it. But go pick up a barbell when you don't know what a barbell does and figure it out. Like, so yeah, I was, what was I, 37 when I walked into a CrossFit gym. And I guess I was, right, 36 when I started like tapping back into fitness, like when Glenn got me started. But all he had me doing was running, riding a bike, doing some push-ups. That was it. And then when I discovered the barbell, it was intimidating as all hell. Like I didn't just jump on and be like, I'm going to learn how to snatch. I was like, I don't know what a snatch is. I don't know what a power clean is. I don't know what a squat is. I know how to squat, I guess, but like the instructor literally had to like put a door frame in front of me. Like the door is like right down my body. And he's like, you're not going to touch this door and you're going to drop till your knees are below parallel. I'm like, parallel to what? Like I didn't know any of that stuff. I was probably coach's worst nightmare. And then I'm like doing this squat, you know, and I'm like, no, my nose is like dragging down the door to like figure out where my chest should be and all that stuff. I had no idea what that was. That's intimidating. I also I had the right friend, Glenn, to help motivate me. TJ had the right motivation in him to want to learn to do something different. And that's not common. I don't think, or not as common as I wish it was, not as common as it should be. So like I think those two things can definitely work against you. But if you tap into the right mindset, make it work for you. Get curious, because longevity is what I'm all about now.
Yeah.
I still want to get after it with Khalipa. If he says he's doing 17 burpees on the minute, you can bet your ass I'm doing 17 until I can't. But you know, like that's in my brain. Like that's the kid in me that's like, he said there's a challenge. I will do that challenge. I'll be that way till I'm, you know, rolling into the grave.
Yeah.
And it's fun. But, you know, I love the idea that I can learn more. Like what you taught me about the Jefferson squats.
Jefferson curl.
Curl. Thank you. See, I'm already fucking it up. But no, like that's amazing to me. Like I like that knowledge, but that same thirst for knowledge can also be a barrier. Like, no, I was a kid. I don't do that anymore. I'm not as mobile as I used to be. I can't touch my toes anymore, so I'm not going to do that. It's like, no, that's an opportunity. Just tap into that opportunity to relearn some skills or learn brand new skills. So
Everyone, I think, should possess the ability to do some of the stuff that they did when they were kids.
Yeah.
It's like that might be hard to get yourself back to that, but that should be a goal of a lot of people, just in terms of like being able to live a life that doesn't have a lot of pain. Like eventually your pains are going to be so annoying and they're going to be in your way so much. I mean, I've seen this happen in the gym time and time again where somebody's like, oh, you know, the flat bench kind of hurts my shoulder. And then it's not too long until the incline bench hurts your shoulder. Then it's not too long until the dumbbell bench press hurts your shoulder. Before you know it, you're not doing any exercises that involve the shoulder. Next thing you know, you can barely get your arm overhead. And you just kind of run into all these things. But like I see that happening in regular folks too. They're like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, it's a little painful for me to get in and out of the car. Not a huge deal. It's only when I'm on the passenger side. It's not that bad because I'm normally driving my car. You know, it's not that huge of a deal. But then it just keeps trickling down. Oh, it kind of only hurts when I go downstairs. Then it starts to hurt when you go upstairs. Oh, I'll just use the elevator. You know, it just keeps piling on. And it's like, I understand that leaning into it is going to hurt, much like, you know, getting your shoes off. And we did a barefoot workout today.
Yeah.
You're seeing more and more people pile shit underneath their feet because my feet need more cushions. That must be the problem because my feet normally hurt. So let me just pile up a bunch of stuff underneath my foot and I should be good.
You got to admit, those Hokas are so nice.
Right?
Feel like clouds.
They're so cushy.
They can feel good, right?
Yeah.
But then people are having problems standing in their own kitchen.
Right.
And that's not normal. So how can somebody run through a forest and run on the grass and run in a field with no problem while another person can't barely stand in their own kitchen, which has like a hardwood floor, you know? So you try to examine these things and try to think about it and try to pay attention to, I wonder what this is meaning. Like, should I maybe just try it? Just to wake up tomorrow morning
and do
and
something.
Fucking walk outside and walk on your grass. The grass will have some dew on it. It'll be a little cold. Walk outside barefoot. Look at the sun for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
You won't die. It's okay.
Totally.
And just see how it feels. If you're out there and you're like, holy fuck, my feet hurt. This is really uncomfortable. My feet are cold. Then that means you're a pussy.
Thank you.
It just means that you have to explore it a bit.
Right.
Like,
But it took a decade for somebody to unwind that fitness that they had.
Right.
And it's not going to come back in a day, but the body is so miraculous that it will come back 10 times faster than you lost
It'll
it.
come back fast.
Way fast.
Yep.
It's unreal how quick you can get back some sort of semblance of fitness for the most part if you try. And if you've never done it, 2-3 weeks later, there's going to be a change, but it's not going to be, I'm taking the pre-workout change. You're not going to notice it instantly. You unwound something for 10 years, give it at least a year, you know? And I think that's like the mental limiting factor for a lot of folks that are no, it hurts. I'm not going to do it. And it's going to take way too long. I've been unwinding this my entire life. I don't want to get back into it. And it's like, no, actually, you're going to get it back a lot quicker. And you're going to be able to do a lot more things. And your body's going to feel 100 times better. You're going to sleep better. Your family's going to like you. Your relationships are going to be better. Just do something a little bit more for yourself.
You know, I'm really curious, what do both of your habits look like for just staying in shape? Do you guys feel like staying in shape for you is something you really have to focus on? Or what habits for both of you do you think are the big things that allow you to look the way you do without having to be super, crazy about it?
You want to go first?
I mean, I can. Because
I'm just kind of curious because I never see you do a goddamn thing. So
it's very true. No, my nutrition has always been it's been down the middle. I'll give it that. I won't flame myself completely out, but nutrition's always been down the middle. I'll eat kind of what I want when I want. I've been on RP and I've done 5 different other diets and all that stuff. And I've tried keto and I've done levels and I've managed glucose. I'm more of like an explorer on things than anything. My stomach's super sensitive though, for the most part, like ulcerative colitis, IBS, the whole 9 yards. So I'm very careful about what upsets this because I can't get after it the next day if this is terrible. So nutrition has kind of always been down the middle, and I don't get too far from kind of general center of like a good macro blend. I have carbs. I'm not ashamed to admit it. And I love white rice. I love protein, fats here and there, but like that's usually the majority of it. And I've played the bulk up game. I was a year ago, I was 230, 232.
Whoa.
I would say. And I
do something to do something.
Yeah, that was the rule during the pandemic. Got to be too something to do something. So it was bulk up as much as I can and just eat a bunch of shit and see what happened. And I felt, I was lifting big numbers, felt good. And one day started feeling really uncomfortable in it. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's reassess where I'm at. I've kind of played ultra skinny. I've played big. I want to be down the middle right now. And that's just kind of how my goals shift. So now it's, okay, let's concentrate on longevity, I would say, is kind of where it's at for the most part. I don't have a fitness goal. I don't have an event goal. I came off a huge year of trying to basically survive with this company. And it was like, okay, cool. Let's put it in neutral a little bit, tone it back. So it's meditation, sauna in the morning, an ice bath. Like it is all personal longevity stuff. And then the workout is like any type of semblance of fitness is probably 7th or 8th down the priority chart. I still do it. I still want to get after it every day. I'm mad because yesterday I ruined like a 32-day streak of being just active every day and sweating every day.
Yeah.
And there's really no goal at the end though. The goal is, okay, let's do some kettlebell swings and open up your shoulders. Let's make sure your lats are good. Let's make sure
so every workout makes you feel better afterwards.
That's what I want. Yeah. And it's a lot of mace swings right now.
I like what you said.
That.
I think there's a lot of utility in what you said. Your like actual workout being like 7th or 8th on your list of shit to do.
Yeah.
For some people that maybe haven't gotten to a pattern of ever, finding fitness, like it might have to move up the priority list for a long time before they kind of have that habit. But I think that's a very healthy connection between you and fitness.
If it's mind right and gut right, then I'll get after it. If those two things are ruined, then I know I'm just burying myself and I'm digging a hole. Like, why keep going? Let's level set. I need to be gentle with myself and literally and take a moment and go, okay, cool. I don't need to bury myself today. It's all right. Go swing a kettlebell for 20 minutes. We're still getting fitness in. It's okay.
Do you walk quite a bit, or do you when
I
you're working?
I actually do.
Stay sedentary?
I'm sedentary, but I do. I try to clock in about 2 miles a day walking, just in general.
Okay.
I have a little dog, so I mean that's like 1 mile around the neighborhood with the dog, and then my wife will go or something like that. But I try to get at least 2 miles walking in every day. But yeah, nothing super high intensity, at least for the last month or so. The only thing is back to the endurance stuff. I found a knack for rowing. So I was like,
okay,
yeah, I know you wanted it, but
cool.
I have a decent 5K time. So that's like the only thing.
Don't let you have a decent 5K time.
It's world qualifying right now.
So make no mistakes. When TJ decides to rabbit hole into something on fitness, like say cycling, he took it to a very strong elite level. Like there's YouTube videos of him riding bikes out there that he will never ever talk about. So going into the pandemic, we bought the suite of Concept 2 machinery. We bought the e-bike, we bought the ski erg, and we bought the rower. And we put them in TJ's garage because you couldn't go to any gyms. And we literally ordered this equipment right before the shutdown. Damn. So it was like perfect timing. And we call his garage Rancho Relaxo. because he's got the ice tub in there and the sauna and then these pieces of equipment. And then I threw like a 70-pound kettlebell. So we put that in the corner too. And I'm like,
It's
cool.
a recovery suite for the most part. Like for most people, like you'd go in the gym, you'd be like, okay, cool. What are we doing today to recover? It's like,
Yeah.
But still get a hell of a workout with
we
that
can
stuff. Though.
absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's, it's LSD. It's long, slow distance. Just get in there and grind it out.
Nice acronym there.
Sorry.
That's a new one for me too. But so he starts rowing and I'm like, hey man, again, got a little bit of visibility here because we don't train together much at all anymore. Like it's just the way the work stuff has been. Like we kind of, we stopped doing that kind of mid-pandemic and it's like, are you getting yours? Yeah. Are you getting yours? Yeah. But he started rowing and then rowing a little faster and rowing a little faster. And it's like that carrot dangles. He's like, oh, I can do this. I can break this time. I can break this time. So he's literally qualifying for, I think it's rowing masters or world masters.
If I submit the time, it's indoor worlds. I'll just put it out there because I'm sure somebody on the podcast in the comments is going to flame this some way. Yeah, bullshit. 17:38 is my 5K time, which is pretty respectable. So
Shit.
yeah.
I thought going sub 20 was respectable.
Wow. That's
So again, I have an engine. I'm genetically gifted to an engine. Blood work says it all. So thanks, Mom.
what about your blood work says that actually?
Hematocrit levels is basically where it's at. So if you look at like most of the endurance sports, track and field, cycling, that type of stuff, even soccer, there is a ceiling on hematocrit. It's 50 is what your read has to be. Otherwise, you have to have what's called a biological passport. My hematocrit tests over 50 any draw of the week. 55 to 57, which people take drugs for. They take EPO to boost their hematocrit and get in the endurance races and stuff.
Like high red blood cell count?
Yeah. And I've just been, my mom and my dad gifted me with it. I don't do anything for it. Not a thing. Like honestly, not a thing. And I can buffer lactic acid pretty well. My VO2's all right.
Does that impact how much iron your body has as well?
Great question. I haven't noticed any difference in the blood work and the iron. I've never been on iron supplements, but I'll double check. Yeah, that could be interesting to look at.
How about you and your habits?
Yeah, and I'm curious about your diet actually. Me just being like a slender guy my whole life, I look up to dudes like Todd Abrams or Ron Penna. They're tallish and they're not like super wide, but they're fucking jacked. And then you pop your shirt off and I'm like, oh shit, like that's just like a body type that I would like to achieve. So I'm like, what does this guy eat? I'm just really curious, like on like in Nsima ask your habits, especially the diet side.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start there. So I'm definitely, I can attribute diet to my wife predominantly. Like she kind of dictates, hey, this is what I want to do. And she does that for a variety of reasons. She's very curious about like, hey, what, she was a triathlete. So she did an Ironman. She had 9 marathons under her belt when we started dating. God dang. Not like one's not enough. You need 9. Like we ran the Boston Marathon together in 2014 as part of our premarital counseling. We're like, hey, if we can run a marathon together, we can probably get married. So all the training runs, all that shit, I would be like CrossFit 4 days a week and one really long run. Wow. But diet came in, Glenn started the idea of it like, hey, there's this CrossFit thing and everyone's prescribing to zone dieting. Well, zone was never going to happen because I like to eat volumes of food and I do have a higher metabolism, so I can get away with making some bad decisions. But along the way, because of Heather, I started getting more curious about different types of diets. Like, okay, like lean meats, proteins, like what are the different things I can do? So somewhere along the way, maybe a decade ago, I learned about eating for your blood type.
Oh.
So I'm an O positive. I am really well suited for a paleo-based diet. Like just strip out a lot of any kind of, the pastas and those types of foods and just shelve those and eat from the perimeter of your store. Like, okay, I can certainly play around with that. Then I kind of morphed that into like little dabs of the Mediterranean diet because I don't believe that the potato is an evil plant. It should be enjoyed. So I've kind of landed somewhere in that world. So it's like today's lunch was probably a great example. There was a little bit of rice on there, a little bit of beans, but it was predominantly lettuce, chicken, and a bunch of good salsa, no cheese.
And no guac because that was extra. I just want to
we're on a budget.
We're on a budget.
No, so the diet stuff is follow that. I don't naturally have a sweet tooth. So I don't fall victim to I got to eat a pint of ice cream every night. Like that's just, I don't think that way. I'll take it if it's there, but I don't strive for it.
How?
So
Yeah, right.
How are you getting through life without thinking that you need a pint of ice cream?
I
Can't make it through one day.
Dude shows up to the office with a spinach smoothie every morning, like clockwork. And I'm like, if you want to hold accountability and habits, like that's one he'll take with him till the end of the day. There's always
Does your wife make
shaker
that for
bottle?
you? It's like
No.
she gives you make it yourself.
Here's the downside of being married to a newscaster who's on the morning news. She leaves the house at 3 a.m.
Wow, dang.
So I get the kids till, I got to get them off to school, and we have some great help who comes in around 7:30, but anything could happen between the hours of 3 a.m. and say 8 a.m.
I need to see a video of this woman. Can we pull her up? We got to be able to pull her
what
up.
station and all that
So-
stuff.
Yeah, I got to see this.
Heather Lake.
This is someone at one of these like really hot like weather woman
Well, if she's
type
on
things.
Fox doing the weather,
Yes, she is.
Fist bump.
Turns
Fist
on the
bump.
newscast.
Let me help you out.
Fox 5 San Diego.
Fox 5 San Diego. Yeah, I'm over here in Star Island. I'm like, yeah, she's hot right now. I don't like that. Sorry, we were talking about something. So she, I definitely
I don't know,
attribute
just
that.
tell me which one's good if I can pull up. I mean,
I just
there's-
go right.
That first
to the top
one's good. Yeah,
First
right
one.
at the top.
Right there. EMS, whole body fitness, right there.
Who are we plugging right now? There we are.
That's
That's,
right.
That's her.
Heather
my wife.
Lake.
There we go.
You're winning.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
All right. Tell us how this worked out. Or tell us about your habits.
It's still
I mean.
working out. I tell you, I'm waiting for it not any day of the week. I'm like, how are you going to fuck this up, Shaun?
And you guys have 2 kids?
We have 2 kids. We have a 6-year-old son, a 4-year-old daughter. We met at Sealfit. She interviewed me for a news story at Sealfit, and I was like this goofy dude there. I'm like, you want to go out for coffee sometime? And 2 kids later, here we are.
There we go.
So she is the accountability partner. Like she is like, look, if I can get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and leave the house, like we're doing some good shit here. So again, on the health tip, right? Like I found that a whole fat yogurt works well for me. Like there's good natural goodness in that. And we have a garden. So like I grow kale in the garden, and I just go out and rip a bunch of leaves off the kale plant.
I think you
throw
just
them in
lost
there.
90% of the listeners.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. No, so like we have a garden because we got little kids, and kids like to grow shit. And like
You can't cover it up, dude. You got a garden.
I got a garden. Okay. Glenn had a garden.
Okay, here we go.
Fucking Navy SEAL. He had a garden.
Hey, gardens are hardcore. Bring gardens back.
Yeah,
Dude, for
gardens
real,
are,
right?
you got to be a patient human to run that. That's not easy. So I will, daily habits. I wake up in the morning, and the nutrition's kind of baked in. Like I got curious about it in my 30s.
Yeah.
And I just started paying more attention to it. So I had blood drawn. I learned that I do well with a paleo-based diet, and that if I shifted into a little bit of a Mediterranean diet, I'm still doing well. And now I've got a Whoop that's going to tell me the other things. So if I'm eating really poorly, it's probably going to affect this. So I just pay attention to that. I'm kind of naturally curious. That's kind of like the whole barbell thing. It was intimidating, but it made me curious. So with diet, it's a similar thing. So I would say, find out what your blood type is, Andrew, and learn about that, and then start just picking. So the way I approach diet is you get 3 meals a day. And if you're out eating, say you have a job where you travel a lot or whatever, you got 3 chances a day, every single day. That's 21 meals per week to make a good decision. Well, maybe right now you're making no good decisions, right? Like every meal, there's a cheat element thrown in there. What if you challenge yourself to 1 meal a day? 1 meal, pick it. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. And that 1 meal, you make a really good, healthy choice for your blood type, for your body type, just what to eat that's going to be clean and healthy. You just changed a third of your life. You literally just changed 1/3 of your life by doing that. Well, all of a sudden you do that for a couple of months. Like, well, what would happen if you did it one of the other meals? All of a sudden you're at 67%, because I round up. And you've just changed 2/3 of your life
You're
by
having
doing that.
more good hours and more good days than you weren't.
Right.
And so I started noticing that, because beforehand it was like kitchen sink. Bowl of Fruit Loops in the morning, no problem. Giant sub sandwich, or extra fries. Like you can do all those things. Pizza for dinner. Like, I don't care. Just shove it in. I'm going to go do CrossFit tomorrow. I'm immortal. I can do whatever I want. And not true. But
In-N-Out will catch up to you.
but I would just start to pay more attention. So I just kept slowly dialing it up in my 40s. And all of a sudden I'm like, I got 3 meals a day. If I have 3 great meals in a day, I have a 100% good diet. Well, I still want to go have some fun. So not every meal is going to count, but hey, always keep it in that ratio. Can you get almost all 3 a day or every other day? And like you just sort of, I use math on my side for that. When it comes to daily habits, I got a specific set of things that I do, which I didn't do growing up, which I've sort of learned myself into, and just, they just feel right. And one of them is I wake up in the morning, I make my bed. And I'm a big fan of that whole McRaven, make your bed thing. It's like, you're just putting some points on the board. It's a simple layup, but you do that. I meditate every morning. And I'm a big fan of meditation. We talked a little bit about Dr. Doug Brackman and his book, Driven. And that Driven book talks a lot about a very active meditation. TJ actually turned me on to it.
You guys mentioned the Calm app. Is that what you said you use?
Yeah, I've used Calm before, Headspace. They're all good. Meditation, I mean, it's sitting there, but it is probably the hardest thing that you'll do. Straight up. Go sit on a pillow for 20 minutes every day. Good luck. You will find a reason not to sit on that pillow.
You will.
Every single time you will find a reason. And that resistance is kind of what we want to play with. We want to explore. Oh, well, why don't I want to sit on the pillow? It's just sitting. What's the problem? So for the DRD2, the DRD4, the highly driven, the people that don't like gardens because you're not a farmer, you're a hunter, right? So those people, us, require a different style of meditation. Most people sit, eyes closed, get really calm and comfortable. It's cool. Active style meditation, what Shaun's talking about, is called Zazen meditation. It was made for the samurai warriors, basically. So Soto meditation for the farmers, samurai warriors get Zazen. It's open eye. Your eyes are at a 45 degree to the floor, and you're staring and burning a hole in the floor with your eyes open. Because as hunters, we're occipitally dominant. We're always looking for the next thing. So closing your eyes inherently, probably for you, it definitely does for me, makes me feel wildly uncomfortable if I'm sitting in a room and I'm just closing my eyes, but I'm not sleeping. Like, you start to get the, oh shit, what's happening?
Where's the threat? What's this thing around me?
So keeping your eyes open allow you to kind of calm down the CNS a little bit and actually be there in your practice. So we both practice Zazen meditation. Yeah.
What's going on up there when you're doing it?
Well,
trying for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a hamster wheel. Like, I'm constantly spitting out ideas and thinking of things. And like, what do I got to do next? What's going on over here? This. And that's not uncommon, like having a company and trying to solve for all the things that go on there, plus a family, plus, whatever else is going on, other personal things. It's bombardment nonstop. This, much like running, much like some forms of physical activity, wipe that clean. And it's a 5-minute to 10-minute deposit. I can't do 20 minutes. I don't even try. But that's also because I got the kids and they're going to come in and attack me. They love nothing more than dad on the meditation pillow, trying to do my thing and just pile on top of me.
Yeah.
But for those 10 minutes, like I got it in this morning before the flight up here, the goal is nothing. The goal is not to think. So I might think, do I have enough time to do this before I have to catch my flight? Of course I did. I knew that before I sat down on this pillow. Shut up. And then the next thought comes in and you're just sort of gently batting those away. And you're doing it very visually. So like, I'm literally staring down at a fixed spot down here, which is preventing me from seeing everything that's going on around here, but I can kind of tell what's going on. So you're breathing in, you're focusing, laser focusing here, you're breathing out, you're kind of taking a little periphery, and you're giving yourself this little exercise to go through with your breath, which allows you to get to that kind of zero state. Well, all you're doing is wiping the chalkboard clean, right? You're wiping off the grease board, so the rest of the day you can fill it back up again, but you're cleaning it out. If you don't have that and you just hit the ground running every day, you're just not all 100% hitting your stride. So it's just a tool. And I don't get all woo-woo about it. I just want to hit that zero state for a couple of seconds and then let's go. I'm up, I'm on to the next thing. I drink warm lemon water every morning. So balances your pH, right? So you drink a warm glass of lemon water, not scalding hot, not tap cold. You heat a kettle, cut a lemon in half, squeeze it into a glass and let it rip. And then once I've ticked those things off, it's game on. So it's then the kids are on, then it's all the habit stuff. But the food thing, like, it's funny that to have a garden, like, I'm the last fucking gardener in the world. Yet somehow it's like gotten into the family thing that we're growing our own vegetables and all the kids think it's cool. So, but just make those good decisions. And then again, I know I'm going to open up an email and some crap's going to happen, but hey, I'm better. I'm prepared for it.
When you guys, Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just that. Just like those little things you can do to start your day. That's all before 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Then go let it rip. Because whatever else you're gonna do, like you got some points in the bank.
Do you guys have any typical responses to stress, like hard stressors? Like when you're like fucked and you're kind of just like tired, what is it that you guys usually do or turn to?
Let's go a little bit deeper. What do you mean by hard stressors?
Just something that really, like, let's just say you're going through a day, something like maybe you're tired.
Yeah.
Right?
Just exhausted.
Just exhausted. And you're like, and maybe you're dealing with something.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they turn to food. A lot of people, that's what they do, right? So for you guys, having been owning businesses, doing all the things that you do, you probably have something that you do or a stress response.
Like a release. Yeah. Okay.
A coping mechanism. Like what do you guys do? Just curious.
I stress eat straight up. Love it.
Okay.
I will, and it's not a volume thing.
Yeah.
But I love tortilla chips and hummus.
Okay.
For some reason, it's just a thing. I will walk right out of the office after a hard call, grab a handful, dip it in hummus. That's pretty much the only thing I'll eat for the next 12 hours, strangely enough. I mean, I'm obviously not overeating, but love that. That's response number one. And that's like, had a hard Zoom, had to write a shitty email, whatever. Response number two is the day was really bad. I'm rowing. Because rowing is the great equalizer. Rowing got me through a divorce. I got him through a divorce. Like rowing is the biggest piece of punishment that I can put on myself. However, I will say this much. As of kind of call it February-ish, as I was resetting this, now it's a pause. And I really have a conversation with myself. Is this the smart move? Am I going to be gentle with myself? Or am I going to be a dickhead to myself and go in deep? And there's a right decision on both sides. I can be gentle with myself. That's a good decision. I can sit down and take a 15-minute nap. Nobody's dying. It's okay. We're all right. It's really hard for me to embody that and feel that I'm okay, though. I sit down on the couch and I want to jump. I want to jump. The opposite end, though, is like, okay, we're doing a hard workout. And I don't know what it is, but it's going to suck for a long time.
But after that workout, you
feel great.
Pretty fucking
good.
I
feel great. Absolutely. So, I mean, there's bonuses on both sides, but yeah, it's definitely been a little bit of shift, I think, recently in terms of feathering the throttle and the brake and kind of understanding that momentum.
100%. Again, we've been arm in arm, for this thing for damn near 5 years now, from concept to where we are, standing here today. And I have seen the change in him. It's been wild because like during that time I've been somewhat consistent with my response to that. Like the shitty things happen, I got to go for a run. It could be a row, but it's going to be something because kind of like how meditation, you're wiping off the grease board and like you're resetting yourself. I see fitness that way. Like I can reapproach and re-engage. So whatever that thing is, whatever crap went wrong, if I can go run for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, wipe it clean. If I go, if gym time permitting, whatever, the less I think though, the better. Rowing, you don't have to think. Running, you don't have to think. So my better response is in doing one of those activities. If I got to think about complex movements and I'm still thinking and I'm trying to turn all that off, then I can kind of re-engage. You get done with the running, you stretch it out, you unlace your shoes and you're like, okay, now I can solve some problems.
Yeah.
No, I asked that just because it's like we talk to so many people on the show, and one thing that you notice is that, like, number one, when you look at somebody who's in really good shape and they're not thinking about it, they usually have pretty good habits that just allow them to maintain that. That's why I'm always curious about the things that people do, because if we can aggregate the biggest habits and share that with people, if they can just build those habits, everything can get easier. And then the stress response is huge because I'm lucky enough that I was put in sports when I was young, because I learned that if I'm mad or if I'm angry, just go fucking run it out or lift it out, right? But for a lot of people, it's like, fuck, let's binge eat. And that's the worst type of response. So it's pretty cool understanding that for both of you two. It's a pretty similar thing.
Yeah. It's it helps, right? It's all about longevity, right? Stress kills people. So how are we mitigating that? And the further we get along in life and the more stress we have, the worse it's going to be. So I better figure it out right now because I've already done 39 years of fucking it up.
Yeah, we had a crucible year last year. Like that was the gnarliest professional experience that we've ever been through in our lives, period. And nothing that I've gone through has compared, from recessions to layoffs to firing people. Like there's nothing that compared to what we went through with the whole MCT stuff. Coming out of that, having solved for that and like solving that problem for not just for the business, but I think like for ourselves, it's helped shift perspective too. Like there were definitely times last year where it was like we could not catch a break. It was just like punch after punch after punch, and we're just like, what? Why are we doing this? Like all the hard questions are pouring in, all the self-doubt, all of those things. But we'd built some of those tools to fall back on. And yeah, maybe at the beginning of it, he was more red line, like we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah,
like
for
he was
sure.
more hammer time.
I still can turn it on.
Oh, it's there. But it's there, and you can be more selective about it. And I mean, every one of us here has had hardships. Everyone here has had hard times. Every listener is going to be able to look at it, whether it was death in the family, illness, injury, professional things. Like shit happens out there. It is not a kind, fuzzy world. How do you deal with it?
Yeah.
And yeah, bag of chips is there. There's
But
a lot of other
but so is the rower.
so is the rower. And he's not wrong. Like, hell, it got me through a divorce. I mean, I had a lot of dark thoughts there where I was like, I could have gone to drinking like that.
Yep.
And instead, my buddy Glenn taught me about a little rowing challenge. So how fast can you row 8 kilometers? It turns out you can row it in under 30 minutes pretty regularly if you get mad enough. That helps a lot.
Yep.
So
100%.
And I mean, you guys know this because like we've all dealt with it, and it's how do you want to deal with it? I'm lucky that I've got a supportive wife who also will remind me of those things. Be like, hey, like, how are we fueling ourselves? How are we doing this? Like, and so it's nice having those accountability partners too.
Yeah.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Sure thing. All right. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Sincerely appreciate it. Make sure you guys check the links down below. BUBSNaturals.com. Everything we talked about today, you can get for 20% off using promo code PowerProject. Don't miss out on that shit. And make sure you guys like and comment something down below on today's episode, and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where you at?
Obviously, go to the Discord because we almost have 1,000 of you guys in there.
Damn.
Yeah, it's at 975, so we should probably be at 1,000. But go to Discord, check us out. We'll be in there talking with y'all. And Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Shaun, TJ, where can they find you and all the things that y'all are doing?
So at BUBS Naturals across all of our social platforms. So it's BUBS NATURALS, BUBS Naturals. And I believe we do the TikToks. Facebook.
We do the TikToks.
We do the TikToks. We have the Facebooks. We got the Snapchats. Yeah, we're all over the interwebs.
And if they want to stalk you guys individually, because they probably do.
So
one.
Yeah, you're not going to find him on there. He's a ghost.
Ah.
He's the puppeteer behind the scenes.
This is the balance. I live and breathe that on the ad side all day long. I don't need it on the personal side.
Yeah.
Chefs
Okay.
don't go home and make 3-star meals again, It's like they're just cooking at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So you can follow me by following my wife, probably better.
Dangerous ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So Slako, SLAKEO, at Slako on all my social media stuff too. So
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for your time today, and thank you so much
Thank
for your patience, because I know we had Tom Segura in the house today, so that was a
that's
big
cool.
deal.
Yeah, what the fuck?
We're all huge fans. That was really awesome having him in here, but I kind of got sidetracked with working with him and training with him. But it was great to get a workout in
good.
with you guys and with fucking Jason Khalipa, a CrossFit champion.
yeah, we got Jason Khalipa, Tom Segura. Like my day's full.
I
I'm
literally
good.
asked, can we have every work day like this? Because this is real fun.
Yeah, it was getting a little weird in here for a little bit.
it's
right?
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
just another Monday for you guys. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it does happen. It does happen.
That's awesome.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.
Thanks.